Now I know them for myself, and I know that we have to fight that because they're crippling our nation, crippling it, and we have to stop that as soon as possible.
Как можно скорее, как можно скорее.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with the multi-award-winning singer and songwriter Lady Gaga and Majid Takhtravanchi, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
But not before we get to say hello to you folks. And so good morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Let's say good morning to the team. We're with you till 8:37 this morning to get you ready for your Tuesday morning. Sarah Sanders, good morning. Sarah is up in earlier than all of us, directs the show, and we'll be covering your commute. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adiyemi behind the controls. Looking good as usual. And Abby's going to be on the air sharing weather and is our senior technician. And behind the controls of YouTube today, Brad Lillies is back, our producer for our stream, in case you're watching the show there. So thanks for being here. In Winnipeg today, widespread smoke. You can smell it in the air, boy. Whoa, this morning. It's a little hazy out there because of it. It's going to be a high of 24 degrees for us today, and with Humidex, it'll feel like 26. In Brandon, mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance of showers. Also widespread smoke across most of the south, a high of 23 in Brandon. Thompson, sunshine early this morning, and then a mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance you'll see showers too, with a risk of a thunderstorm this afternoon. And yes, all over the province, widespread smoke. Thompson's high today, in case you're curious, 17 degrees. In fact, the smoke warnings extend across all of southern Manitoba and parts of the central Manitoba and up into the north as well today. All right, Heather Wells is here with our headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Wabkanu's NDP government used an order to quash appeals against the approval of a mining license. In 2024, the province approved an environmental license to allow Sino Mine Resource Group continue extracting critical minerals at the Tanko mine near Nopaming. 4 people appealed the decision, and earlier this month, the Canoe cabinet dismissed those appeals. We'll hear more about that. And you will not be driving over the Louise Bridge for a while. It was supposed to reopen at the end of this month. The city now says it'll be likely September. We'll hear more in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
That is going to not sit well with some commuters. We're going to hear more about that in the show today as well. Also in the program, right out the chute at 6 o'clock, we're going to talk to the co-director of Heartwood Healing Center about the importance of self-care. It's a reminder of what self-care is and what it isn't, and why is it so hard to achieve. Also, we continue to talk about consent and the stereotypes perpetuated after the aftermath of the Hockey Canada sexual assault trial.
Today on Q.
I'm Garby Bailey, sitting in for Tom Power. The award-winning Canadian novelist Heather O'Neill and her daughter, the artist Arizona O'Neill, will be here to talk about collaborating on Heather's new book, Valentine in Montreal.
I was inspired a lot by children's books from the Victorian era.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. New York City police are trying to learn why a gunman targeted an office tower in Manhattan yesterday. The shooter killed 4 people and injured another, then he took his own life. Freelance reporter Steve Futterman has more on what we know so far.
It happened in the early evening in Midtown Manhattan. A man openly carrying an AR-15 style assault rifle calmly walked into a Park Avenue skyscraper and opened fire.
Pure evil came to the heart of our city.
Patrick Hendry is the head of New York's Police Benevolent Association. When it was over, around a half hour later, there were multiple deaths, including a police officer who worked as a security guard in the building and the shooter who killed himself.
I realized, oh my God, this is a shootout.
This woman was outside the building. She saw a wounded man race out with blood coming out of his body.
He said, help, help, I've been shot.
The suspect has been identified as 27-year-old Shane Tamura. He grew up here in Los Angeles, was a highly regarded high school football player. In recent years, he has been living in Las Vegas. New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch.
Mr. Tamura has a documented mental health history, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location.
Among the companies located in the building are the National Football League and the accounting firm KPMG. And this wasn't the only deadly shooting that took place in the U.S. yesterday. In Reno, Nevada, a man shot and killed 3 people outside of Reno's largest casino. The shooter was wounded and taken into custody. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Famine is now unfolding in Gaza. That is the central finding in a new report from the UN-backed Global Hunger Monitor. But the Integrated Food Security Phase classification is not formally calling the situation a famine. Aid groups say fighting and blockades mean they're unable to collect the data needed for a formal famine declaration. Ross Smith is with the World Food Program. He says his agency is also unable to move the needed amount of aid into Gaza.
The metric of success here is not the number of trucks. The metric of success is, are we able to alleviate the situation on the ground? Are we able to turn the dial on the state of severe acute malnutrition? Are we able to provide the food basket and to meet the needs of vulnerable households there?
The IPC says a third of people in Gaza are going days without food. In response to the report, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar says the situation is tough, but there are lies about starvation. One of Canada's longest-running civil rights protests could be coming to an end. Eddie Carvery has been occupying the land of what was once Africville for more than 50 years. The Black community in Halifax was bulldozed in the 1960s. Carvery has been fighting for reparations, but as Nicholas Again reports, he's received an eviction notice to remove his protest trailer.
Justice wasn't served then, and I'm here trying to find justice.
Eddie Carvery sits in front of his RV, vowing to stay, even in the face of the latest eviction order to vacate the land he was born on and has been occupying for more than 50 years. Now 79, Carvery has spent most of his life seeking reparations for the people of Africville, a former Black community demolished by Halifax in the 1960s in the name of urban renewal.
Services end 100 yards from Africville. No garbage pickup, no running water, no...
Africville was home to around 400 residents starting in the early 1800s. Many were former slaves who came to Canada looking for a new life, but faced many challenges, from no running water or paved roads to an infectious disease hospital and a dump being built next door. Carvery keeps this history front of mind.
I'm tired, but until they find someone else to champion our cause, to fight for Africville, I've got no choice.
The Africville land is now home to a park and a museum in its honor. Carvery has been evicted by the municipality before, but always comes back. This time, the Africville Heritage Trust Society signed the notice, citing safety precautions, and the municipality issued him a ticket for trespassing.
He's been on the front lines, ridiculed, dragged through the mud.
That's Carvery's grandson, Eddie Carvery III. He and dozens of others showed up Monday to protest the eviction. The Africville Heritage Trust Society and Halifax Mayor Andy Fillmore declined to be interviewed. A spokesperson says Carvery's ticket was canceled Monday, and Carvery says he plans to keep fighting. Nicholas Sagan, CBC News, Halifax.
Ukrainian officials say at least 17 people have been killed in an attack on a prison. Russia bombed the facility in the southeastern region of Zaporizhia late yesterday. Dozens of inmates are in hospital with serious injuries. The attack destroyed the dining hall and administrative buildings, but the prison's fence is still in place. Russia's national airline is canceling dozens more flights today as it deals with the aftermath of a major cyber attack. Aeroflot revealed yesterday its IT systems have been breached, and hacker groups say they have accessed sensitive airline data. Dominic Velitis has the details.
The destructive cyber attack brought chaos to Russian airports with dozens of flights cancelled. Russian prosecutors have now opened a criminal investigation, while lawmakers described the attack against the country's national carrier Aeroflot as a wake-up call. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, meanwhile, called the event alarming. The threat of hacking is a threat that remains for all large companies that provide services to the public, he says. We will, of course, seek to clarify this information and wait for the relevant explanations. The hacking group called Silent Crow says it carried out the attack with Belarusian cyber partisans, a self-styled hacktivist group that opposes President Alexander Lukashenko and says it wants to liberate Belarus from dictatorship. In separate statements, both groups say they launched the operation in support of Ukraine and its fight against Russia. The cyber attack is one of the most disruptive Russia has faced since launching its invasion of Ukraine in 2022, as well as severely impacting travel plans for thousands of Russians during peak holiday season. It's hit Aeroflot's share price and exposed serious vulnerabilities in the country's critical infrastructure. Dominic Velitis for CBC News, Riga, Latvia.
Heavy rain is causing devastation throughout Beijing. The rain started falling last Wednesday. Since then, the Chinese capital has received almost as much rain as it usually gets in a year. By midnight last night, more than 540 millimeters of rain had fallen on Beijing. All that water has washed away cars, caused flooding and landslides, and knocked out power. At least 38 people have died in the affected areas, and there are more rescues happening right now. Bear interactions are part of life in southeast BC. One community was reminded of that after a grizzly attack sent a man to hospital. The man was e-biking with his wife on a popular trail when they saw two bears. As Georgie Smythe tells us, his partner acted fast to save him.
They came around kind of a blind corner, and they were right on those bears. The attack happened very quickly.
Creston Mayor Arnold de Boon says the couple, who have not been named, are locals in the small Kootenays town, where a network of riverside trails draw hikers, bikers, and a few days ago, aggressive grizzlies.
She saw a bear run past her, and then she heard her husband yelling, so she used bear spray on, I think, first the bear that ran by her, and then secondly, to just help stop the attack. The attack then broke off.
The man was taken to hospital where he underwent surgery for significant but not life-threatening injuries. Residents say that part of the Kootenays has seen the grizzly population grow after conservation efforts. Education, like how to use bear spray, is key, says Dee Howard, who works for the town, to develop ways to keep bears and humans safe and separated.
When we go for a cycle or go for a walk, what should we be looking out for and how do we prepare?
This attack brings that home for those that live there.
Sometimes I don't make sure that I have my bear spray, but I will be now.
Yeah, always be aware. You have to be aware. We live in a forest, and there are lots of bears around.
Conservation officers say it's likely the couple startled the grizzlies and that the attack was defensive, so the bears will be left alone. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps us spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Really smoky out there today. Tuesday morning, lots coming up this hour on the show, including the weather. So we'll get you into details of that in a moment with Abby. Also, how often do you actually engage in self-care? And how do you define it? We're going to really dig into that this morning. The co-director of Heartwood Healing Center is in studio talking about the importance of self-care, so stay tuned for that. Also this hour, we're going to continue talking about the importance of consent and the stereotypes that perpetuate sexual violence. And this is now in the aftermath of last week's Hockey Canada sexual assault trial. We're going to look into that. Plus, this morning, a little bit later in the hour at 10 to 7, we're going to talk about the looming trade deal with the United States. The Prime Minister did make comments yesterday publicly in PEI, so we'll dig into what he said. Lots of digging this hour. Follows on what stories are developing. Speaking of which, Heather Wells is here also from our news department with headlines this morning. Hi there.
Good morning. Well, Peter Toth, the pilot who died in a single-engine plane crash near Dugald, is being fondly remembered by his friends in aviation. RCMP say Toth was the only person inside his Quad City Challenger 2 when it went down Saturday morning. James Slade, president of Experimental Aircraft Association Winnipeg, says flying his Challenger was one of Toth's dreams. So we'll hear more from him. And a man who is banished from a Northern Manitoba First Nation is fighting that decision in federal court. We're going to hear what happened with the story about Terry Francois, cast out of Nisichawayasik Cree Nation until the end of 2029. That's coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, self-care today might mean putting on a mask. It is so smoky out there. Abby, and it's everywhere pretty much, right?
It is everywhere, Marcy. We're looking at smoke stretching from the southern parts of the province and spreading into the north where we have like really, really high risk in a lot of areas. These air quality warnings in place for the whole of southern Manitoba, parts of central Manitoba, and parts of northern Manitoba. And the smoke will be really, really making things uncomfortable for a lot of people today. So it's best to avoid spending much time outside if the smoke impacts you. Talking about conditions in Winnipeg at this time, 16 degrees, smoky skies across the city. We're looking at temperatures that would stay with these hazy conditions, warming up close to around 24 degrees today, but right now 16. And that's what we're seeing in most of the regions down south, from Brandon all the way down to Dauphin. We're seeing temperatures hover near 16 degrees with smoky, hazy skies, and the highs will be between 24 and 26 degrees in most of the regions today. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds and some clearing maybe later tonight, but the smoke will definitely return overnight and even into tomorrow. Up north, we're seeing temperatures between 4 and 14 degrees. Also, smoky conditions impacting parts of the northern part of the province today.
Tell you what, yesterday we had a 30% chance of those afternoon showers, and I was like, oh, whatever.
Oh, boy.
30% isn't a lot. I'll leave my patio cushions out, all that jazz, and everything's wet.
Yeah.
It got really rainy yesterday.
It really rained yesterday, and I was like checking in with my brother on the other end of the city, and he said, oh, I don't see rain here. I'm like,
Oh, is he north in the city? So
no,
maybe
he's
or east?
He's towards the eastern part of the
Got
city.
it.
And he's like, not much here. It's just cloudy.
I had a big cloud that opened up over our house in the south, so maybe it was just my place. But
No, it poured in the south.
did
yesterday.
it? Yeah, for you too. Okay. Well, we need the rain wherever we can get it, so we should be grateful for it, for sure. All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Maybe bring some layers, though, and umbrellas, and, with this unstable weather, we don't know what's coming. Okay, let's get into the traffic situation and just tee up your start of your day here with Sierra Sanders.
Good morning. Well, let's start with some good news. The overnight closures, if you remember, the overnight closures at Abinogi, Mikinon, and St. Mary's have wrapped this morning. So as of 6 a.m., so about 15 minutes ago now, the roadwork is complete. So those overnight closures are finished and the roadwork is complete. So you won't have to worry about that if you are maybe you work the night shift, maybe you drive early in the morning like we do, and you would be catching that road work. But that road work is complete and that wrapped as of 15 minutes ago, so that's nice and exciting. Other than that, it's just getting started here, the early morning commute and the show. So traffic is looking smooth right now. If that is not the case, though, and there's something getting in your way, whether you are here in the city or out on the highway, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Okay, ready, everybody? Let's breathe. Now let's pour a little bit of coffee. because I feel like I cannot do the first interview about self-care without looking like a hypocrite because I have been running around this morning like a crazy person. I'm kind of half serious and half not because our first interview is about self-care, and a lot of us, and I have been running around, but a lot of us actually don't properly know how to give that to ourselves. July 24th just passed. It was actually National Self-Care, so we thought we'd take a moment to actually reflect on this a little bit. When you think about it, some people often think they have to go out and do things like, candles, the spa, yoga classes. But what is it really? And why is it so difficult for us to achieve? Kelsey Gio is in this morning live in studio. She's the interim coordinator for Heartwood Healing Center. And they work with people who've experienced child sexual abuse and is here to talk more about self-care. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Do you think a lot of people think that self-care has to involve spending cash? Like I mentioned the things about the spa and this. Is that sort of what somehow society's left the picture of in our head?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're fed pictures and videos about what self-care can look like your day at the spa where you spend maybe $200 getting your nails done and your hair done or sitting in the pool. And those are great and those are very valid self-care activities as well. But it does not have to look like that. There's so many things that we actually do all the time, and even just paying attention to them or doing them with intention is part of self-care as well.
Can you give us some examples of those daily things that you know really are part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Even just having a shower in the morning or brushing your hair. Like brushing your hair feels so good for me. And I do it every day and sometimes don't really think about it. And when I take the time to think about it, it feels like self-care because I'm caring for myself and doing something that feels good for me. That doesn't involve going out and buying something or spending the day at the spa or what have you.
It's funny because I actually... and this, I did not know that the guest was going to say this, that Kelsey was going to say this, but I had that moment with brushing my hair. I don't know, it was somewhere last month where I just had a moment where I thought the brush, I just took a second and went the brush, like kind of scraping my scalp, not in a negative way, but like itching it, scratching it, like, and then pulling through my hair, like felt really, really nice. But I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Living in those moments. Why is it important to do this, to practice self-care in however you're going to do it? Why is it important?
Well, you were talking about how busy life is, and I'm a lot like that too, where it's just go, go, go. We rarely stop to think about, oh, what can I do for myself or what feels good for me? I think often we think about other people more actually, or, when you think about if someone else were to brush your hair, how good would that feel? Or when you do it for maybe your cat or your dog, you think about supporting others more than we think about supporting ourselves or doing the things that we have to do that are on our to-do list. But it's so important to take those moments to have these, what we often call glimmers or little sparkles in our day where we're just appreciating those little things like brushing your hair. But it could also be something like going for a walk around the block, and it helps regulate our system, helps regulate our emotions. It might bring us a sense of joy. And that actually helps us throughout the day just feel good as people, but also how we show up in the world, maybe a little bit more joy, maybe less conflict, things like that are all part of the impact that self-care can have.
Because there's so much extremity now. Like, I mean, people will be go, 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 and then stop. And sometimes I've made the mistake that even for myself, that catching up on sleep is self-care, which it can be. But sometimes it's like, if you drop into bed, then get up and go again. Where's that in between to brush your hair?
Yeah.
I want to look at the people that you work with in Manitoba. What difference has self-care made in the lives of the people that you interact with?
Yeah, absolutely. So we support folks who are adults, 16 plus, who have experienced sexual abuse as children, and now as adults they're on their healing journey. And so that looks different for every single person. But things like self-care we talk about, and the glimmers like I mentioned, and also self-compassion, just taking the time to reflect on ourselves and think about what can I do in my day to make me feel better. And those things go a really long way in the long term when we start to implement them and they become regular strategies or things that we get used to doing, part of our routine. It can really help keep us grounded throughout the day and be able to handle hard things when they come in different ways that are maybe more positive than we used to. And something like self-compassion, we often give to other people. And so that's part of self-care too, caring for ourselves. Like when you think about a hard situation that you're dealing with, if your friend told you that situation, what would you say to them? And you would meet them with more compassion than you meet yourself with. And I think that's part of it too. And that goes a long way for the participants we work with as well.
It's those narratives in your head, right?
Absolutely.
You're not worth this, or you should feel shame, or you've somehow got to keep pushing or prove yourself, or, you're not worthy.
Yeah,
Right?
and a lot of negative talk,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. You talk about all the to-do lists we're all making, but you suggest we could keep a box of things that could help with self-care.
Yeah. So it could be a box. It could also be a written list. There's apps that you can use on your phone, and it could be a written list as in like a paper and a pen or on your phone.
And what would it say, or what would be in the box if you have one?
Take a day or not even a whole day, take 5 minutes to write down a list of things that are self-care for you. If you really liked brushing your hair and it felt really good on your scalp, write that down. And when you have a spare moment where you're like, oh, I could do something for myself, pull that out. You don't have to think too hard. You just got to do it. Some people like a box under their bed that has maybe a little stress ball or a book with quotes, things like that, that you can just pull out, maybe in hard times, but also in times where you're like, oh, I have a moment. Maybe I should implement right before bed every night. Just do one thing, to think about yourself and care for yourself.
What's what external things can help with self-care? I'm thinking about, we haven't talked about music. I mean, we've done interviews about music as healing, for example, and things like that I suspect will be in a lot of people's lists.
Yeah, absolutely. I am actually a musician myself, and so music is a huge part of my self-care, whether it's just listening to a song that makes me feel grounded or lifts my spirits a bit, or just strumming the guitar or writing music. There's so many ways you can engage with music. But whatever your hobby is, maybe it's exercise or just writing books or reading or things like that, are all awesome and valid forms of self-care that we sometimes don't make time for.
I wish you could stay all morning.
Me too. I could talk about this forever.
I could talk about this forever as well. It's been very peaceful. It's been a lovely way to start the day and just remind people of some important things and some strategies as well. Do you have a favorite app that we should leave people with? Or
I use pen and paper,
Okay.
but I have heard Finch is good, especially for the neurodivergent community. So I would suggest that, but I haven't personally used it.
Got it. I know I've done the Calm thing before. That's that app where you
I've
listen
heard
to the
that one.
rain. And I haven't done it in a while, though, because I've been sliding maybe with the self-care. Nice to have you in studio, Kelsey. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So strategies and also a couple apps leaving you with there as we think about self-care. Kelsey Guillot has been with us, interim co-director for Heartwood Healing Center in Manitoba.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
It is 6:24 a.m. right now on CBC. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here in Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. 16 in Winnipeg, smoky in the air. Brandon is misty and 12 degrees. Thompson is smoky and 2 degrees. And that's a cold spot, by the way, in the province. Thompson's actually been the cold spot for the last little while here. Such strange weather for the middle of the month, or summer, I should say here. We're heading through the last week of July already. Well, next on the program, last week, 5 former World Junior hockey players were found not guilty of sexual assault following a highly publicized 8-week trial. They were charged with sexually assaulting a woman known under a publication ban as EM in a London, Ontario hotel room in June of 2018. To look at how the case is shaping both public and legal conversations around consent, we've reached Stacey Hannum this morning, professor of criminology at Wilfrid Laurier University. She's written a book called Defining Sexual Misconduct, Power, Media, and Me Too. Good morning.
Good morning.
What questions did this trial raise for you about how the general public understands or might misunderstand consent and the laws around sexual misconduct and assault as well?
I think what we're seeing is that there's still a lot of confusion around what constitutes valid consent, around the law, around the determinations in the courtrooms. And I think that the public conversations about consent, from my perspective, are still missing a lot of nuance. During the Me Too movement, when you had women coming forward making accusations against men in positions of power, the public seemed really receptive to the idea that in a case of a powerful man making advance against a woman who was in his employ or who worked in his industry, that there might be a level of power imbalance that would cause that woman to respond in a way that we might not otherwise see. So, for example, she might be feeling afraid for her reputation, she might be feeling afraid for her career, she might be concerned about possible repercussions, and she might go along with things that she wouldn't necessarily otherwise consent to. And I don't think that we've brought that conversation about power into our discussions of consent in cases where the element of power difference might be a little less visible. So when I look at this case of EM and the hockey players, I see, a group of men at their physical peak who are potentially very imposing in a room with a woman by herself. And there's a level of power imbalance there. And there's also a level of power imbalance around the status that those men carry as star hockey players and the kind of way that is venerated in Canada. And so when you see these levels of power differences, I think the question needs to be raised, who's responsible for ensuring that there was free and ongoing consent in that situation? And I don't think we're having those conversations about making sure that when people are asking for consent and when they're moving forward with sexual interactions, that they are taking into account whether or not there's a power difference in that interaction.
I just want to repeat what you said, because you think that the question should be on who is responsible for checking the power imbalance, or pardon me, for checking the consent on an ongoing basis. So you're suggesting that, are we thinking of consent also too much as maybe or maybe the law looks at consent too much, perhaps as a one-time sort of exchange between two people or more, and it should be in an event. It should be an ongoing check of consent.
So the law in Canada, in the precedent, it does actually say that consent needs to be an ongoing thing, and that an individual can revoke consent at any time, even if they had previously given consent. And so I think that there is a sort of misunderstanding about that, but we're not very good at putting that duty of care equally onto both parties.
So I need to interject here, because I really need to ask about fear, because the judge ruled not guilty and found that, quote, consent was not vitiated by fear. So what does that actually mean in the context of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so the word vitiated means made legally invalid in this context. And Canadian law says that you cannot obtain consent through threat of force or coercion. And if the person is afraid of repercussions, if they're afraid of violence, even if that fear is not reasonable, the idea is that if you are legitimately afraid, that you cannot be giving consent under those circumstances, and so your consent should be made legally invalid. Now, in this case, the judge did not believe EM when she said she was afraid, and so there was not ruled to be a level of fear that would vitiate or invalidate her consent. And I think this comes down to the question of how do we recognize fear? Because it is necessarily a subjective decision to decide, was this person legitimately afraid? And when we look at trauma responses to fear and dangerous situations, we're all familiar with fight and flight. Those are the most popular ones. Increasingly, we're talking about freeze, and there's a recognition that a victim of sexual violence might not fight back, might not run away, but might freeze and simply, remain immobile and go through that situation. There's a fourth trauma response that we hardly ever hear talked about, and this is fawn. And this is the idea that a person might go along with and placate and make nice with the person or people that they're afraid of. And they're doing that, and it's not even necessarily a conscious decision, but they're doing it as a trauma response to try and get through that interaction with as little harm as possible to ensure that there's not an escalation of violence. So you can imagine someone who's being held up at gunpoint, and they sort of smile and make a joke and say, yes, here, have all of my goods, And the problem is when there's no weapon and when there's no overt threat of violence, fawning can look a lot like consent. And so it becomes a matter of determining, what does fear look like?
We will leave it there. Really valuable to have you on. We have ongoing coverage coming up later in the week on this as well, with a sexual assault survivor here in Manitoba who wants to weigh in. Stacey, thank you.
Thank you.
That's Stacey Hannon, professor of criminology at Wilfrid Laurier University. Your CBC News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:31, it is 16 degrees. Another air quality warning for all of southern Manitoba, including Winnipeg. Widespread smoke today, a high of 24. Peter Toth, the pilot who died in a single-engine plane crash near Dugald, is being fondly remembered by his friends in aviation. RCMP say Toth was the only person inside his Quad City Challenger 2 when it went down Saturday morning. James Slade, president of the Experimental Aviation Association Winnipeg, had been friends with Toth for more than 5 years. Slade calls him one of the most active members of the group.
He was just delightful to be around because he was extremely knowledgeable. You could ask him about virtually any topic, and he would have something to say about it, and he was informed on it as well. And he's just a very happy person to be around.
Slade says flying his Challenger was one of Toth's dreams. A man who is banished from Nisitchewasset Cree Nation is challenging that decision in court. A federal application for judicial review was filed last week. It says Terry Francois was charged with resisting a peace officer after driving away from a check stop set up by NCN on New Year's Eve. The 53-year-old wasn't allowed to stay in the community with pending charges, so he's been living in Thompson. Francois later pleaded guilty and was fined. The court application says Francois returned to NCN in June for his daughter's graduation. That's when he received a letter from the First Nation banishing him for 5 years. Marty Moore is the lawyer representing Francois.
The idea that you can be banished from your home and your family without a notice or an opportunity to be heard is just an egregious violation of basic principles of fundamental justice.
The claims have not been tested in court. CBC News has reached out to NCN Chief Angela Levasseur for comment. Winnipeg's Louise Bridge is going to be off limits for drivers for longer than expected. The 115-year-old bridge was closed to traffic in May for maintenance. It was supposed to reopen at the end of this week, but some unforeseen issues have pushed the opening date to early September. Graham Fair lives in the area and says the closure is adding time to his commute.
Getting to work's been a lot different. I've just happened to take the buses a little bit earlier, just because it takes a little bit longer to get to work and stuff like that. It was pretty easy getting downtown, and then with the bridge closure, it's a lot harder to get downtown now.
A 2024 report recommended the city extend the life of the existing Louise Bridge by another 30 years instead of replacing it with a brand new bridge. The bridge repairs begin in 2028. Wabkanu's NDP cabinet used an order to quash appeals against the approval of a mining license. In 2024, the province approved an environmental license to allow Sinomine Resource Group to continue extracting critical minerals at the Tanko mine near Nopaming Provincial Park. 4 people appealed the decision. Earlier this month, the Canoe cabinet dismissed the appeals upon the request of Minister Mike Moyes. Eric Rader at the Wilderness Committee says while he has no issue with the new license, he does have problems with the way the appeals were dismissed.
The only recourse to appeal an Environment Act license is to the same minister whose department issued the license.
Rader says the province should farm out the appeals to an independent body. He also says the province should make concerns public and respond to them in public. A gunman shot 5 people at an office building in New York last night. 4 of them are dead.
Tonight we mourn for those who were killed, and we pray for the families as they go through this painful moment.
New York Mayor Eric Adams. Among the dead is a New York police officer, 36-year-old Deidrul Islam, as well as the gunman who apparently took his own life. Jessica Tisch is New York City Police Commissioner.
The shooter is believed to be Shane Tamora, a 27-year-old male with a Las Vegas address. The vehicle he exited is registered in Nevada to Mr. Tamora. Inside of that vehicle, officers found a rifle case with rounds, a loaded revolver, ammunition, and magazines. According to our law enforcement partners in Las Vegas, Mr. Tamora has a documented mental health history.
You can hear more on this story coming up on World Report at 7. And Canadian tennis star Eugenie Bouchard isn't ready to say goodbye to pro tennis. She delivered an impressive performance last night at the National Bank Open in Montreal, beating Colombian Emiliano Arango in 3 sets and delaying her impending retirement.
It's out. Jenny Bouchard, where have you been? Welcome back. Retirement? No way.
Eugenie Bouchard plays her next match at the tournament on Wednesday. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
All right, Heather Wells is live in our news department this morning. And Abby's here, too. He's here with your regional forecast next on CBC.
Good morning once again. Smoky skies remains concerns across most of the regions. This morning, we're looking at air quality warnings in effect in all of southern Manitoba, Winnipeg included in that warning. And then we're tracking it into parts of central Manitoba. And we're looking at conditions also in the northern part of the province, also seeing smoky conditions where the smoke is really reducing visibility and will be affecting breathing for a lot of people. So you should take it easy. I checked the air quality health index just a few minutes ago. We're looking at between 8 plus and 10 plus within the Brandon and Winnipeg region. So you need to take it. Means it is really, really unhealthy to spend a lot of time outside. If you're making the transition from one bus to another this morning, you need to take care.
Just be careful.
Winnipeg, 16 degrees, smoky skies. We will see this widespread smoke all through the day. Highs will be around 24 degrees and it's going to feel humid. The skies will clear later tonight, but that smoke will definitely stay with us till later in the evening. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, Modern, Winkler, Altoona, Morris, down to the U.S. border. We're seeing temperature hover between 15 and 17 degrees at this time. We're looking out for a mix of sun and clouds in that part of the province. Now, there's a slight chance of showers, a slight chance again, right? So we might get rain there. It's coming late in the afternoon for that region. We'll see highs also around 24 degrees. Brandon is sitting at 12 this morning. Misty conditions coupled with that smoke you have there, and the winds are just light from the northeast. You'll see a mix of sun and clouds, also having a slight chance of showers for folks in Brandon this morning. Temperatures will be warming up to around 23, 24 degrees. Dauphin is sitting at 9. Misty, similar to Brandon, 9 degrees right now. Winds coming from the west. The smoke will definitely be hanging around through the day. You see highs around 23 degrees. Gimli sitting at 13 degrees right now. Cloudy conditions we're seeing. The Interlake region will see smoke that will continue for most of the day. The wind direction, I'm looking at northwest, and it's going to be warming up to around 24 degrees with the humidity feeling warmer than that, and the smoke will stay even into the overnight for folks in the Interlake region. Now, tracking it into the north, the powerful influence around an area. As mentioned, widespread smoke continues in both of those regions and even surrounding areas. We're looking at hazy conditions and temperatures around 13 degrees at this time, warming up to 21. Thompson is at 4 degrees. Cool spots in the province this morning, but the smoke is a concern. We'll see some sunny conditions and then a transition to cloudy conditions rolling in later. Thompson has a chance of showers today, and we may even feel some thunderstorms rolling through your region sometime in the afternoon, but more smoke will definitely come with that all through into the evening period. Highs will be around 17 degrees, while for the north in Churchill, that is the only part of the province where we don't have warnings this morning. However, there's still smoke present there, but we just don't have warnings there. 10 degrees at this time, and temperatures will only get to 16 degrees. But right now, Winnipeg, 16, smoke in the air.
Traffic's fine. Let's talk about your hat.
Okay, bring it on.
It's the grayest day ever, and if you're watching on YouTube, Abby's got like an old school 1980s real deal neon, like highlighter yellow hat on.
So I was actually going to match it with a gray hat, but I'm like, it's already gray outside. I need something that's going to be happy.
I'm digging
like,
it.
This would just go with it this morning.
In 1986, a true story, I had like day glow like that, pink pants. I wish I still had them. And a big long sweatshirt that said 1986, and every number was a different color of fluorescent.
Holy, that would be nice.
Right? Yeah.
Bring it back.
It's coming back, but I wish those pants were back. There's somewhere in a thrift store somewhere where I donated them many years ago. But yeah.
If I find it, I'll let you know.
Do it. If you find it, you got to wear them.
Deal.
Yeah.
Deal.
Actually, you could probably rock those pants.
Deal.
All right, let's talk about other things here. Let's get to business news. Phil DeMont standing by. Hey, Phil.
I went looking for him. I couldn't get you guys live on the I just wanted to see, because I've seen him he's got this august look, and then he'll put on like an alligator hat. You're wondering, okay, what was she thinking?
Abby's got the coolest hats, I just got to say, all the time.
I hear.
Let's talk Friday. So New Deal. Well, Friday is the trade deadline for us here, but we're all talking trade. So in the New Deal between the EU and the US, let's talk about that right now. There's a big focus on cars. What does that mean for Canada, Phil?
It's a problem. That's because the New Deal reduces tariffs on European autos going to the U.S. down to 15%. But right now, U.S. tariffs are 25% on non-American content in vehicles coming from Canada. It means our parts makers are getting hit with higher tariffs than European manufacturers. It's obviously an issue. Industry executives say the policy doesn't make a lot of sense because the U.S. and Canada's, the auto industries are so integrated. You can't, untangle the spaghetti on this one. It does give you the outline of a deal, though, Marcy, knocking down, let's say, the tariffs for our companies going south of the border in exchange for maybe better dairy quotas for American producers, that kind of an idea. But to me, the European agreement points out how unlikely American tariffs are to get more car manufacturing back to the U.S. The idea is you're supposed to set up a wall and people want to jump over the wall, more or less. But in this deal, European car companies promised to invest $600 billion in the U.S. But last year, Germany, Europe's largest car maker, invested only $15 billion in new plant overall. So the $600 billion, that would seem to indicate they're not investing any money in Europe and sending it all across the Atlantic. Seems like a bit of a stretch. Also, because a lot of these announced investments don't actually come to fruition. So in the first term, I followed one company, Foxconn, out of Taiwan, promised to build a $10 billion plant in Wisconsin, create 13,000 jobs. The actual numbers, $700 million of investment and 1,500 jobs. Now, that's not bad, but it's not what was promised. And you've seen that across a number of investments, not just in Trump's area, but in Canada. A lot of places they'll announce a big number and it doesn't come to fruition. Then there's the American industry. A lot of spare capacity in U.S. car plants right now means new production. Just would have them run the machines, existing machines, longer, not build new plants. All this to say the higher tariffs in the U.S. probably, because they haven't yet, but probably will drive up prices for American car buyers, but they probably will not boost manufacturing down there.
Let's look at this country. Has Buy Canadian helped our tourism industry?
Yeah, it might be the sector that's benefited the most from Canadians buying from Canadian producers. That's because more Canadians are shunning an American vacation. I don't know anybody who's going there really anymore. But a jaunt over to Asia or Europe is just too costly. So instead, they're traveling to other parts of the country to spend their vacation coin. One survey had 64% of Canadians saying they wanted to vacation within this country this year. In June, occupancy rates for Canadian hotels hit almost 76%. That was up versus last June, like June 2024. Revenue per room, that's important because of discounts, up almost 3%, $240 a day. That's on top of May's gain, which was almost 5%. Calgary was actually the big winner in room occupancy, up 12%. That compares favorably to U.S. hotels where occupancy is down this year. One reason, Canadian trips to American destinations off a third in June. But so far, the better domestic travel isn't reflected in overall industry receipts. Statistics Canada said tourism spending increased 0.5% in the first 3 months of 2025. The issue is fewer Americans are actually coming up to Canada, which is offsetting some of the gain. Still, though, the overall domestic tourism metrics are improving, and that's likely to be reflected in later statistics. TD, the bank, estimates that tourism spend in this country rise by about 4% this year.
And finally, we continue to talk about how hot it has been and the drought affecting Manitoba. There's a new study that says high temperatures are driving up food prices, right?
Yeah, it comes out of Barcelona Supercomputer Center in Spain. It was released this month. We're talking price spikes as high as 50% for olive oil in Europe, 50% for rice in Japan, almost 300% for cocoa beans, read chocolate out of West Africa. There have been previous studies on the effect of high temperatures on crops, but the Spanish research tank looked specifically at 16 products, 18 countries between 2022 and 2024. So they have really good data. And the research found that, the numbers all spiked. Prolonged droughts in Spain and Italy pummeled the olive crop there. 2024 heat wave, 4 degrees Celsius higher in Ghana and the Ivory Coast hurt cocoa output. Other examples, rising temperatures, the Institute says, worldwide means these kind of shortages are becoming permanent and food prices will stay up as a result. You can see that in Canada. January 2019 to this January 2025, peanut butter prices up 30%, avocados up 33%, orange juice up 54%. You can gripe about Loblaws, but this study says these prices aren't coming down anytime soon.
Quick look at the markets, Phil.
Sure. Pretty positive in Europe because some of the companies now faced reduced U.S. tariffs without agreement. So Germany, France up more than 1%. China and the U.S. keep talking about trade. Hong Kong down a bit. Shanghai up a bit. Oil's flat, $66.71 a barrel. Canadian dollar continues a bit of a downward slide off a tenth of a cent, 72.71 cents U.S.
All right. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is our business news at 6:46 a.m. on this Tuesday, July 29th. And maybe it's circled on your calendar because it's your birthday. If it is, you're going to head out and look for some freebies next on CBC. There's a lot of places that offer freebies, everything from Lego to lip gloss on your birthday. But how free are they really? CBC producer Danielle Nerman found out.
Most people celebrate their birthday with friends. Not Lincoln Ho, because he's convinced he has a birthday curse.
So whenever I have a birthday and there's a party involved with cake, that place goes out of business.
I know what you're thinking. Sounds kind of superstitious. But even when Lincoln moved his birthday party from a restaurant to a friend's house,
they had like a 2-year lease on their rental property. They were evicted within 2 months. So after that, I'm like, okay, no more birthday parties.
Now Lincoln spends his birthdays alone, hoovering up as much free stuff as he can.
Free pancakes, free matcha latte, free birthday sandwich.
He takes the whole day off work and drives around Edmonton, making stops at dozens of cafes, stores, and restaurants.
Free fries, free skincare, free salt.
Lincoln runs a website called yegventures.ca. He says in every city and town across Canada, you can score free stuff just for being born. And if you're organized, you can really milk it.
I've put everything into a spreadsheet and I looked for the ones that you can only redeem on your birthday itself. So Starbucks, you get a free birthday drink, but I go for the food items because they cost more because I'm a little cheap like that.
Lincoln cashes in big on his birthday, almost $100 worth of free food and merch. So what do businesses get in return? Dun dun dun, the D word.
So data is the most important thing that businesses want.
Nicole Rourke teaches marketing at St. Clair College in Windsor. In order to get that birthday freebie, you usually have to download an app, sign up for a loyalty program, or join an email list.
It's actually very clever of them because, let's face it, we're all little kids at heart and we all like to feel special on our birthday. Doesn't matter if you're 16, 60, or 90, but it is an excuse for them to get in touch with you.
And keep staying in touch long after your birthday. Because you told them where you live, how old you are, and your favorite froyo flavor, that business knows your shopping preferences and whether you're a Gen Z or a boomer, which means they can target you with enticing offers.
Usually there is an incentive to click on their website, visit their store, and there's an expiry date to that. So they're giving you a call to action, generally with a sense of urgency, to really get you to buy something sooner than later. And a lot of us do fall for it, you and I included. We're suckers.
But before you get sucked in, just know some birthday freebies have strings attached. Mac, for example, only hands out gifts to customers who, in the year leading up to their birthday, spent $150 on makeup. And others are kind of lame.
So some of them have become coupons, like buy one, get ones, or you get 5% off of this. It's like, well, 5% is just like GST off, right? So I'm like, is it worth it to even sign up for this and get all of this junk mail?
Over the years, Lincoln has curated his list. He doesn't waste his time on gifts that aren't really free, and he always hits up the granddaddy of birthday swag, the free Denny's breakfast. Sometimes twice.
I figured they're probably working 8 to 12-hour shifts, so the person working in the evening will probably not know that I was there in the morning.
Now that's a grand slam. For CBC Radio, I'm Danielle Nerman.
Man, you wouldn't have to eat for days if you had two of those big breakfasts, I suspect. Time right now is 10 to 7. You're listening to CBC's Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. I'm RC Marcusa with our team here at the show. We're at 16 degrees and smoky outside. Well, let's talk about the Prime Minister and what he said yesterday. He was talking to reporters in PEI, and he faced questions about trade negotiations with the U.S. August 1st. Coming up Friday, right? That's the deadline. And he described the negotiations as intense and tough. Alex Bollingall is with us, Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, to talk more about where we're at. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
So what are the questions you would like answered at this point, now days out from August 1st?
Yeah, I mean, Carney yesterday in PEI also talked about he thinks there's a landing zone potentially for a deal. It just depends if they get there. So, you know, I think my biggest question at this point is, well, what exactly is that landing zone? And I think within that question, the biggest question mark, if I can peel it in further, is basically, you know, in the wake of these other deals that the U.S. has signed with, or agreed to, I guess, with Japan, and most recently the European Union, they accepted a 15% tariff on most of their exports to the United States, and you know, as it's been reported, they're keeping the 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum. So if that's sort of an indicator of what type of landing zone we might get in our deal, if we are to get one, and the government's kind of acknowledged this, it's more of a question of what level of tariff we're willing to accept, or we will accept in a deal. In other words, you know, Trump this year unilaterally imposing these layers of tariffs on Canada. You know, we're going to, it sounds like the government it feels it's going to have to accept at least some of that remaining. So it's a question of how much of it stays. And that's really I think if there is a deal this week, that's the big focus is, you know, how much pain are we willing to accept, at least, you know, while Trump is here and while this is sort of the reigning philosophy in the United States, you know, this tariff ideology that they have. You know, how much are we willing to accept remains imposed upon us? Is the big question.
They're sure signaling that there's going to be something that we have to accept, because that's how Trump is dealing. Now, what happens if we do not reach a deal with the Americans and Friday comes, do you think?
Well, I think, you know, Trump is threatening to increase tariffs. So what that looks like exactly will be a big question. But I think, you know, if there is no deal, as we've discussed before, I think on your show, you know, there was a previous deadline for July 21st after the G7 summit. They were trying to get a deal by then. It got kicked to August 1st. So if they don't get a deal again, I think the discussion around will Canada retaliate harder against Trump tariffs with new counter tariffs? You know, when he increased the steel and aluminum tariffs to 50%, Canada didn't match that in counter tariffs of its own. So will we now, if there is no deal, are there other things we'll do to try and change strategy and maybe increase the pressure on the Americans to back down or get a deal with us? I think that will become more of a lively and intense discussion in Canadian politics of how exactly to respond and kind of move the ball forward in this game, which seems to, we'll see what happens this week. But if there is no deal, it would seem that it's kind of the talks are kind of maybe stalled or not really progressing.
Let's talk about something else here. It's been just over a month since Canada announced we would increase defense spending to 5% of our GDP. What more do we know about where the government's going to find that money to do that?
There's still a lot of questions about that, and it's a huge amount of money. Like the defense budget this year is in the ballpark of $60 billion. If we're going to hit this new target over the next decade, like they want to hit it by 2035. Depending on how the GDP grows over that time, like we're talking about another $40 or $50 billion on top of that $60 billion. So it's a huge boost, and we don't exactly know how they're going to pay for it. There is this spending review that they're doing, or expenditure review in the federal government this summer, where they're basically looking to find ways to reduce spending in other areas by $25 billion. Annually within the next 3 years. So if that money gets redirected in large part to defense, maybe that's part of how they finance this. But even how they're going to do that spending reduction, specifically what gets cut, what gets shifted around, that's also a big question. So it's not exactly clear at this point how they're going to finance this huge kind of rearmament drive that is underway, but it's definitely something that people should pay attention to and focus on.
All right, Alex, thank you very much as always.
Yeah, thank you.
It's Alex Ballingal, the Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, with some analysis ahead of August 1st, the deadline now the new deadline, there's been many of them, but for the deal with the U.S. to be made over tariffs and trade. So that's Friday coming up already, August 1st. Incredible the way the summer's moving here. It is 4 minutes to 7 o'clock. I'm just going to get into some notes about the commute here. The Louise Bridge remains closed, so note that. Otherwise, we want you to call us if you see any problems. So you can let us know what's going on out there with haze or with smoke in your area, or how your drive or walk or roll is going anywhere in Manitoba, wherever you are. If you're in the city of Winnipeg and Brandon, maybe you're up north in Thompson or another smaller community, give us a call on the commuter line, 788-3093, and we will pass it along. We'll get into your forecast in a moment. Right now, though, let's turn our attention to Heather Wells in our news headlines.
Good morning. Well, Peter Toth, the pilot who died in a single-engine plane crash near Dugald, is being fondly remembered by his friends in aviation. RCMP say Toth was the only person inside his Quad City Challenger 2 when it went down Saturday morning. James Slade, president of Experimental Aircraft Association Winnipeg, says flying his Challenger was one of Toth's dreams. Wabkanu's NDP cabinet used an order to quash appeals against the approval of a mining license. In 2024, the province approved an environmental license to allow Sinomine Resource Group to continue extracting critical minerals at the Tanco mine near Nopaming. 4 people appealed that decision. Earlier this month, the Canoe cabinet dismissed those appeals. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
We also will hear more about the life and death and how Peter Toth is being remembered in the next hour as passionate, happy, and kind. So stay tuned. That's coming up in some detail just before 8 o'clock. Plus, on Louise Bridge, how are commuters feeling about it? Not reopening as planned, especially when Arlington remains closed. Well, it's causing some area residents headaches and significant delays, they say. We're going to hear from the city about why they say it's necessary to keep Winnipeggers safe. And we're going to hear more from people about how they feel about it. And we have a feature interview coming up right after 7 o'clock. We're going to meet a Manitoba man who used to work in Bangladesh's garment industry, used to deliver equipment to various factories. We're going to hear what he saw and also hear why he left doing that and why he says he'll never look at fast fashion the same way again. His story is coming up after 7 o'clock, and he's written a first-person piece about this online if you want to do some reading as well. It's at cbc.ca/Manitoba. In that weather forecast, as promised, smoke in the air and an extended issue with widespread smoke and air quality warnings across most of southern Manitoba and central Manitoba and parts of the north as well. So around Island Lake, Lynn Lake, Nelson, Thompson, Flin Flon, the Paw, and here in Winnipeg, Brandon, smoky day ahead. A high of 24 today in Winnipeg with humidex. It'll feel like 26. It should clear late tonight, but that local smoke hanging around. Well, we're hanging around too, so stay with us. And World Report's coming up next. You're on 89.3 FM. This is CBC.
Today on The Current.
I'm Catherine Cullen. The Canadian government is calling for more aid to reach the people in Gaza amid reports of mass starvation.
An immediate ceasefire, of course, the release of all the hostages, but also the resumption at scale of humanitarian aid.
A look at what's happening on the ground and the international reaction coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Famine is playing out in Gaza. That is the central finding in the latest report from the multi-body international agency that monitors hunger. The alert from the IPC partnership says urgent action is needed, and mounting evidence shows a rise in hunger-related deaths. Crystal Gomansing has more from London.
They throw the aid and those who are strong get it, says this father of 6. Items that are available in the markets, he says, are so expensive no one can afford them. The IPC partnership says the worst-case scenario is playing out. It issued an alert today saying there is mounting evidence that widespread starvation and disease are driving a rise in hunger-related deaths. The alert is not a formal designation of famine. In order for a famine to be declared by the IPC, at least 20% of households in an area must face an extreme lack of food, and at least 30% of children in an acute state of malnutrition, and 2 people for every 10,000 dying each day to outright starvation or malnutrition and disease. Aid groups say they are unable to collect data needed for a formal famine declaration. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said lies are being told.
And the lie is the starvation policies.
On Sunday, Israeli officials implemented a 10-hour daily pause in fighting so agencies could deliver aid. The World Food Programme says it is still not getting anywhere near enough. Samir Abdel Jabir is with the WFP.
Wheat flour alone is not enough. People cannot survive on just eating bread.
The IPC says it is working on a more detailed analysis of the situation on the ground. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
New York police are trying to learn why a gunman targeted an office tower in Manhattan yesterday. The shooter killed 4 people and injured another. Then he took his own life. Freelance reporter Steve Futterman has more on what we know so far.
It happened in the early evening in Midtown Manhattan. A man openly carrying an AR-15 style assault rifle calmly walked into a Park Avenue skyscraper and opened fire.
Pure evil came to the heart of our city.
Patrick Hendry is the head of New York's Police Benevolent Association. When it was over, around a half hour later, there were multiple deaths, including a police officer who worked as a security guard in the building and the shooter who killed himself.
I realized, oh my God, this is a shootout.
This woman was outside the building. She saw a wounded man race out with blood coming out of his body.
He said, help, help, I've been shot.
The suspect has been identified as 27-year-old Shane Tamura. He grew up here in Los Angeles, was a highly regarded high school football player. In recent years, he has been living in Las Vegas. New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch.
Mr. Tamura has a documented mental health history, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location.
Among the companies located in the building are the National Football League and the accounting firm KPMG. And this wasn't the only deadly shooting that took place in the U.S. yesterday. In Reno, Nevada, a man shot and killed 3 people outside of Reno's largest casino. The shooter was wounded and taken into custody. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Lawyers for Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to overthrow Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking conviction. The case is something U.S. President Donald Trump cannot escape, even in Scotland. He's there today trying to put the focus on trade deals and his golf courses. Karen Pauls explains.
U.S. President Donald Trump is in Scotland negotiating trade deals and golfing at his resorts. But this story is following him.
Oh, you got to be kidding with that.
Trump hasn't been able to escape questions about his connection to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
I never had the privilege of going to his island.
Trump's justice officials met for 2 days last week with Epstein's ex-girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. Her lawyers claim she should have been shielded from prosecution by an agreement Epstein made to plead guilty. They want the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn her conviction and have also suggested Trump could commute her sentence or pardon her.
Well, I'm allowed to give her a pardon, but nobody's approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it.
Watching all of this, the couple's victims.
I don't know whether the president is floating this idea to see how the public or elected officials would react.
Gloria Allred has represented more than 20 of them, who she says are still looking for accountability, but not at their expense.
There's no question that Ms. Maxwell would like to either have a pardon or some commutation of her sentence, something. But let's see what she has to say.
Meanwhile, Trump's lawyers say they want to question Rupert Murdoch in the next 2 weeks over a Wall Street Journal article revealing a birthday message Trump sent to Epstein saying, "May every day be another wonderful secret." Karen Pauls, CBC News, Washington.
One of Canada's longest-running civil rights protests could be coming to an end. Eddie Carvery has been occupying the land of what was once Africville for more than 50 years. The Black community in Halifax was bulldozed in the 1960s. Carvery has been fighting for reparations. But as Nicolas Seguin reports, he has received an eviction notice to remove his protest trailer.
Justice wasn't served then, and I'm here trying to find justice.
Eddie Carvery sits in front of his RV, vowing to stay, even in the face of the latest eviction order to vacate the land he was born on and has been occupying for more than 50 years. Now 79, Carvery has spent most of his life seeking reparations for the people of Africville, a former Black community demolished by Halifax in the 1960s in the name of urban renewal.
Services end 100 yards from Africville. No garbage pickup, no running water, no...
Africville was home to around 400 residents starting in the early 1800s. Many were former slaves who came to Canada looking for a new life, but faced many challenges, from no running water or paved roads to an infectious disease hospital and a dump being built next door. Carvery keeps this history front of mind.
I'm tired, but until they find someone else to champion our cause, to fight for Africville, I've got no choice.
The Africville land is now home to a park and a museum in its honor. Carvery has been evicted by the municipality before, but always comes back. This time, the Africville Heritage Trust Society signed the notice, citing safety precautions, and the municipality issued him a ticket for trespassing.
He's been on the front lines, ridiculed, dragged through the mud.
That's Carvery's grandson, Eddie Carvery III. He and dozens of others showed up Monday to protest the eviction. The Africville Heritage Trust Society and Halifax Mayor Andy Fillmore declined to be interviewed. A spokesperson says Carvery's ticket was canceled Monday, and Carvery says he plans to keep fighting. Nicolas Seguin, CBC News, Halifax.
Grizzly bears are changing their movements across the Canadian Rockies. A new study shows the bears are becoming more constrained as they avoid highways and towns. As Rick Sarali reports, Alberta has just lifted its moratorium on coal mining, and that could make the problem worse.
There already has been quite a bit of connectivity loss for grizzly bears in the southern Canadian Rocky Mountains.
Eric Palm studies wildlife biology at the University of Montana. He's also the lead author of a new study published in the journal Conservation Science and Practice. Him and his team analyzed 20 years of GPS collar data from over 100 grizzly bears. They found that humans have had a significant impact on the way bears move across the mountain landscape in southern BC and Alberta.
Any additional losses could eventually have population level effects for grizzly bears.
In Alberta, grizzlies are considered a threatened species. In BC, they're classified as a special concern. So POM is worried that Alberta's lift on a moratorium on coal mining in the Rockies will make it harder for bears to find food.
Building new coal mines, and each one of these areas, expands the footprint of human infrastructure, can affect connectivity by usually inhibiting animals moving from one habitat patch to another.
Tal Avgar is a wildlife ecologist at UBC who contributed to the study. He says the majority of grizzly bear deaths are caused by humans.
That means that the grizzly bear that wants to live a long and happy life needs to avoid humans as much as possible.
More wildlife crossings are one solution to help bears roam across their habitat. But Avgar says it's not as easy a fix for obstacles like towns and mines, something future developments will have to keep in mind. Roxara Lee, CBC News, Calgary.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcuso with our team at Information Radio. Up and at it on a Tuesday. It's smoky out there. Thanks for being with us live from downtown Winnipeg on CBC Information Radio. Your morning show on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, also on the app, and you might be watching on YouTube. Well, this hour on the program, Itrat Anwar is a Manitoban, but he used to work in Bangladesh's garment trade. He says until he saw the human rights horrors up close and personal. We're going to have his story coming up on Information Radio, and if you're watching, we've also got some visuals as well with this story, and he's written a really impactful first-person piece you can read at cbc.ca/Manitoba, but that's coming up straight ahead on the show. Also, some celebration this hour. We're going to talk to a 21-year-old Winnipegger that was just named one of the 30 hot Canadian classical musicians under 30 by CBC Music. And Louise Bridge remains closed. How do you feel about it? And why does the city need to do it? Stay tuned. That's all coming up as well. Right now, let's go to Heather Walsh. She's live in our news center with our headlines today. Good morning.
Good morning. A man who is banished from a northern Manitoba First Nation is fighting that decision in federal court. Terry Francois has been cast out of Nisitchawayasik Cree Nation until the end of 2029. He was charged with resisting a peace officer after driving away from a check stop set up by NCN on New Year's Eve. The 53-year-old later pleaded guilty and was fined, but still is banished for 5 years. The Manitoba government says its strategy to address chronic homelessness is working, but some in Point Douglas are raising safety concerns about encampments in their area. They say change isn't happening fast enough. We are going to hear from the minister responsible for homelessness, Bernadette Smith, coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
And now to the forecast with Abby.
Smoky skies stretching right across the province this morning. Poor air quality is still a concern in all of the regions, so you need to take care of the Winnipeg. We're looking at 16 degrees right now. The sun, I peeked outside now, it's trying to glow orange behind those really smoky skies. So it's this smoky condition will be sticking around through much of the day, and the hazy skies will also come with some light breezy conditions from the north later. Temperatures will warm to 24, and then tonight we'll see a bit of a clearing, but the smoke may linger as we get into the overnight period, and that continues tomorrow. Across the southern part of the province, Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, we're looking at a smoky morning. Temperatures around 16 degrees. The day is going to stay hazy, a mix of sun and clouds. A slight chance of showers in some western spots, but most of the areas will stay dry. Further north, we're seeing 13 degrees in the northern parts, and about highs would get to 20 in the west and closer to 17 in Thompson today. But Winnipeg right now, it is smoky outside and it's still 16 degrees.
How's the morning commute, Sierra?
So far, not too much developing here in the city, but I did get a call from Marcel, and he's driving on Highway 6, so the northern highway that kind of takes you all the way up north, and he told me that he was seeing lots of smoke, and it was getting heavier toward Ponton, which is actually I had to look on the map because I don't know where that is, if I'm honest. Even though I've lived in Manitoba most of my life, there are certain towns or areas that I haven't heard of. So I took a quick look on the map, and that is part on Highway 6 in northern Manitoba. So he was heading up there on Highway 6, and he said that it was very smoky up there. He could smell it in the air. The smoke was blocking the sun, he mentioned. So it is very smoky up north. And as Abby was mentioning, make sure you're taking care of yourself as best you can. If you are up north and those wildfires are affecting you, or the wildfire smoke is affecting you. So lots of smoke in the air here in the city, it sounds like, and a lot more up north. If you are seeing anything else out there that's slowing you down, whether it's smoky out there for you, or there's something else that you want to let me know about, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. The number is 204-788-3093.
It's going to be a really bad day with smoke. I think I was just looking on YouTube. If you were watching the show streaming there as well, you would have just seen a shot of our downtown in Winnipeg, and it looks like fog today. It's taking away some of the tops of the buildings, that smoke. Yeah, there's that shot up again if you're looking. So take it easy. Maybe consider masking up. Well, next on the show, most of you have likely heard about the controversial fast fashion industry at some point, particularly the garment factories where a lot of cheap clothing is made. Everything from poor wages, child labor, and unsafe and even deadly work conditions have been making headlines around the world. But for one Manitoban, it's far more personal than that. Back in Bangladesh, Itrat Anwar briefly sold machinery to different garment factories. What he saw there, he says, shook him so much he'll never look at so-called fast fashion the same again. Itrat Anwar wrote about his experience, and as I mentioned, a first-person CBC Manitoba website piece you can look at. And he also joined me via Zoom to talk about it.
Good morning.
Can you paint a picture of what you saw and what it smelled like, what it was like inside one of these garment factories that you'd come across, and what stood out for you? What was it like there?
Absolutely. There are a few moments that really stick with me today. And one of the first things that really hit me was just walking through those factories, the noise, the dust, and the pressure on workers to meet impossible quotas. You could see it in their faces. They were exhausted just trying to survive. I saw workers toiling 14 to 16 hours a day, sometimes even longer, just to make ends meet. And the worst part, many didn't even get paid overtime, even though they work until 2 or 3 in the morning during peak season. That relentless pressure to deliver cheap products really opened my eyes to the inhuman side of the fast fashion. I saw the dyeing section where machines are releasing toxic chemicals into the air, fumes that stung eyes, burned the throat. So yeah, it was really hard.
The first line in the piece that you wrote for CBC, Itrat, is this, quote, "The true cost of your $100 piece of clothing isn't one you can see. Sometimes it's measured in blood. Sometimes it's the cost of human lives," end quote. Tell me more about that and what you heard from the workers.
Yeah, I think the most important thing for people to understand is the cost of fast fashion. Isn't just measured in dollars. It's measured in human lives. When you buy $100 clothes, we are often unaware of the real price that someone else is paying for it. Low wages, unsafe conditions, and sometimes even their lives. These workers, typical women, are trapped in a system where they're exploited for cheap labor. So after the Rana Plaza collapse, there was global outrage. But the truth is many companies just moved production to countries with even cheaper labor, but nothing changed.
You brought up the Rana Plaza collapse, and you're right that globally, there was outrage. A lot of people might recall what you're talking about. So April 24th, 2013, 1,100 people died when that factory collapsed. You were on your way to work, I understand, when you heard about the collapse, which housed one of the garment factories. What do you recall from that day? I mean, this is a place that you actually visited to sell your equipment. What do you recall from that morning?
It was like shocking for everyone, but for us who were working in the same industry, it was something we already knew there because we saw. I have seen it firsthand that there was no any protection for the workers. The buildings was very unsafe for workers.
What about cracks in the walls, faulty wiring? I mean, you would see this in these spaces that you visited?
Yes, I saw it there, and yes, it was all visible. But yes, there's when this happened. Yes.
What was the breaking point for you? When you realized that you couldn't support this industry anymore?
Yeah, it was a realization. But the turning point really came when I saw just how deep the corruption ran. I remember this one incident during a workers' strike. The workers were rioting outside the factory because they hadn't been paid in months. The local labor leaders who shouldn't have been advocating for them were more focused on hiding the truth and protecting the system rather than standing up for the workers. So it was in that moment that I understood how broken the system was. It wasn't just about bad condition. It was about a culture that valued cheap labor over human life. I couldn't be part of that anymore. After seeing so much sufferings, I knew I had to walk away.
And can you tell me what you mean when you say it was when the turning point was when you saw the depth of the corruption? I think you worded it. What did you hear or see? Like what? Not the big picture, but like what actually happened? Was it a moment for you?
Yes, the workers' strike. So the labor leaders should help them to get their
demands
rights
met. Yeah.
Demands, yeah. So help them with their rights, but some of them, the labor leaders, they were like was corrupted. They were not helping them. They were like trying to hide the whole story, the truth. So
even you're saying even the labor leaders, because you're talking about the factory workers and those that run the factories, but you're talking now about even the labor leaders that are supposed to stand up for the workers' rights. You had firsthand experiences where even those labor leaders were trying to cover up some of the conditions that workers were facing.
It was all happening. I saw it by myself. I mean, I saw it. I have seen it firsthand, and yes, I realized that the place is totally corrupted, and it really needs some the global awareness to help those people to get their rights.
Do you look at the tags on the clothes all the time now? Like, has it changed you?
Yes, I look at the tags and I see they're coming from the Cambodia, Vietnam, made in Bangladesh. So yes, as I said, that it's a huge industry in Bangladesh, the world's second largest after China, and thousands of workers, millions of workers are suffering every day. The same problems, same things, but no any changes. So we should raise the awareness, and we should help the workers.
Why did you decide you wanted to write this piece for CBC? What do you want people to think about the next time that they're out shopping for clothing?
Yes, I wanted to write about it long ago, but I couldn't. Because of the many reasons. The first thing is, if you write something like this back home, I will have more problem. So I believe Canada is a safe country, independent country, and you can talk about the rights here. So I feel it's a time to talk about those people. I work with them in the same place. I saw them every day in their canteens, sewing lines, factories, in their boiler room. So I saw it. I have seen it firsthand, and I had the realization that I should write about them. I should talk about them. I should help those people. They are suffering every day.
Thank you very much for being with us today. Really appreciate your perspective.
And thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes.
For more on Itrat Anwar's story and what he has written about it in the first person piece in his own words, you can see that on our website this morning at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Personally, from CBC Podcasts, allows you to get lost in someone else's life. From a mysterious childhood spent on the run to a courageous escape from domestic violence, each season of Personally invites you to explore the human experience in all its complexity, one story or season at a time. This is what it sounds like to be human. Find Personally on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Still ahead on the show this morning, highly persecuted or conspiracy?
In Canada, we tend to say, oh, that's a them problem. But it really is a problem that we have here as well.
An American musician says he's just trying to stop the spread of anti-Christian bias in Canada, but he's been accused of hate speech. We're going to have a closer look at that aspect of this ongoing story. This is about the musician who is maybe playing a concert in Central Park next month. So stay tuned. That coverage of this aspect of the story is coming up after 8. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are with Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. It's 16, it's smoky, and it's smoky in a lot of places. Winnipeg, Thompson, and really widespread smoke across parts of the north as well. We got a call on the traffic line, Highway 6, heavy smoke around Ponton this morning. And here in southern Manitoba, I'll post this picture around 7:30 just because I'm going to go to sports next here. But Abby sent a picture of the sun this morning that's just glowing orange. There's so much smoke in downtown Winnipeg, kind of looks like fog today. So you can see some of those photos up on our YouTube stream if you're watching the show that way. It is time for sports, though, as I mentioned, and Scott Rickard joins us live on CBC. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy.
So it's another busy day for Canada at the World Aquatic Championship. What's the latest from Singapore?
Well, a race where two Canadians had a shot at a medal, neither of whom are named Summer McIntosh. McIntosh with the day off after winning her 2 gold medals so far. This morning it was Taylor Ruck and Kylie Mass competing in the 100-meter backstroke final. It came to a conclusion just a short time ago with the Canadians finishing just off the podium. 4th for Maas, 7th for Ruck. So that's the latest on the Canadian contingent. Elsewhere, the most remarkable performance at the meet so far, Marcy, might be that of China's Yu Zidi. We talked a bit about her yesterday. She's just 12 years old and missed the podium in yesterday's 200-meter free barely. Her times in that discipline, by the way, are the fastest of any kid her age all time, male or female, and considerably faster than Summer McIntosh at the same age. Kylie Maas shared her thoughts on you.
Unbelievable. I have no other words. I'm not even sure how many times a week I was swimming at 12 years old to be so young and to be able to perform on that level at that stage, let alone it be that fast, is crazy.
Surprisingly, Marcy, you is not the youngest ever competitor at a Worlds. That was Bahrain's Alzain Tarek, who did so at the age of 10. Although under looser qualifying standards, swimming's global governing body used to allow universality selections, but has abandoned that to increase its standards. You swims twice more at these Worlds, including tonight, and is considered a medal contender in both races.
10. Wow. Let's go
Grade
to
4.
Right?
I mean, come on.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Let's go to baseball. There's a lot going on and off the diamond, actually.
Yeah, the big news yesterday, Marcy, surrounded Cleveland pitcher Emmanuel Clase, one of the best closers in the game. Clase has been placed on paid leave as part of MLB's investigation into sports betting. He is the second Guardians pitcher to be placed on leave in connection with a sports gambling probe. Meantime, tough day on the field for the Blue Jays. They lost to the cellar-dwelling Orioles and also lost George Springer, a scary incident. He was beamed in the helmet and had to leave in the 9th inning. Here is his manager, John Schneider.
That's the worst part of baseball for any side, is when a pitch gets thrown that high. You don't think about baseball, you think about the human, you know what I mean? It's scary, it happens, it sucks. He was alert the whole time. He was kind of talking to me and Boone and Jose while he was laying down there, which is a good thing, you know? But you hate seeing that happen to anyone at any time.
Thank goodness for the strength of those helmets. There's a real possibility, Marcy, Springer could miss time with a concussion after a blow to the head like that, but it could have been so much worse. Meantime, on a positive note, Bo Bichette had 4 more hits in yesterday's loss. Bichette now has 9 in a row, which breaks a club record. He'll try and add to his totals tonight against Baltimore. The Major League record, if you're wondering, is 14. No records broken in the Gold Eyes game last night. They fell just short of their comeback attempt. They lost 5-4 to Fargo Moorhead. Those two teams are back in action tonight. 6:30 is the first pitch.
And I just like saying Bo Bichette. It's like such a
Bo
good
Bichette.
baseball name, right?
No, it truly is.
All right, let's finish with tennis and what might have been the end of an era.
Yeah, it might have been, but wasn't, as it turns out, as Eugenie Bouchard staved off retirement, winning her opening match at the Canadian Open. The former world number 5 upset Colombia's Emiliana Arango, extending her career for at least one more match. And Bouchard was asked about it on her hometown court in Montreal.
I told my family that if I won the tournament, I would come out of retirement. I felt like the old genie out there. I woke up this morning just telling myself, look, I can't control the result. I just want to have a good attitude, have a good fight, and try to feel good with my game. No matter what happens, I wanted to walk off the court having enjoyed that gritty battle. I enjoyed every second of it.
It gets tougher, Marcy, for Bouchard in her next match. It's against former Olympic champion Belinda Bencic. Still with Genie's army behind her and with promises she'll forego retirement if she wins this tournament, I would not bet against her tomorrow night. Not that I'm a betting man. That's a sensitive topic in sports these days.
It sure is, as outlined. All right, thanks a lot, Scott.
You bet.
With Morning Sports, that's Scott Regehr. Your CBC News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 16 degrees in Winnipeg. Smoky summer continues. Widespread smoke today as Winnipeg and all of southern Manitoba are under an air quality warning. Today's high is 24. A man who is banished from a northern Manitoba First Nation is fighting that decision in federal court. Terry Francois has been cast out of Nisitchewayasik Cree Nation until the end of 2029. His lawyer filed a federal application for judicial review on Thursday. It says Francois was charged with resisting a peace officer after driving away from a check stop set up by the community on New Year's Eve. The 53-year-old wasn't allowed to stay in Nisitchewayasik with pending charges, so he's been living in Thompson. He later pleaded guilty and was fined. When Francois returned to NCN in June for his daughter's graduation, he received a letter from the First Nation banishing him for 5 years.
It made me feel like the alien, you know? I'm like no longer allowed anywhere near anybody from my reserve. And I grew up there as a kid. As a little baby, I grew up there.
The allegations have not been tested in court. CBC News has reached out to NCN for comment. Peter Toth, the pilot who died in a single-engine plane crash near Dugald, is being fondly remembered by his flying friends. RCMP say Toth was the only person inside his Quad City Challenger 2 when it went down Saturday morning. James Slade is president of EAA Winnipeg, an experimental aircraft association, and had been friends with Toth for more than 5 years. Slade calls him one of the most active members, working on 2 projects at once.
Always found him to be very meticulous when working on his plane or on our group project. He would always be the one I would ask to double check my work if he was around. He was always very, very conscious about getting things done right.
Slade says Toth had recently received his flying permit this spring and had completed a float plane endorsement in the past 2 months. He says flying his Challenger was one of his dreams. You can hear a little bit more about this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. After months out of their homes, people from Titasqueat Cree Nation can start heading home. The 200 people have been out of the community since the end of May because of a nearby wildfire. Evacuees ended up in places as far away as Niagara Falls. Then in June, the water treatment plant in the community stopped working. Chief Doreen Spence says repairs have been made and there will be a staggered return. Staff are on the way back now, and on Friday and Saturday there will be flights from Winnipeg. Here is Chief Doreen Spence on social media.
This will be for the elders and also for the families with small children. But we can also work on if you have, if somebody wants to go ahead of time to go clean out clean up your house, well, we can send you guys earlier to on a bus.
Spence says there have been several power outages and people will likely have to throw out all the food in their fridges and freezers. A more than century-old Winnipeg bridge is going to stay closed most of the summer. The Louise Bridge was closed back in May for maintenance. It was supposed to open in just a few days, but the city says unforeseen issues have pushed the opening date to September. Joseph Keith drives through the area often and says this closure is causing major traffic delays.
It's a complete inconvenience for people to reroute, especially around 3:30 to 5:30. It's impossible. You're bumper to bumper for takes you about 40 minutes to get off of Regent to Henderson Highway.
The city says replacing the bridge isn't feasible right now, with larger, more urgent projects like the North End sewage treatment plant taking priority. There will be no appeals against a new environmental license for the Tanco mine near Nopaming Provincial Park. Earlier this month, Wab Kinu's NDP cabinet used an order in council to dismiss 4 appeals against the license. The province approved that license in 2024 to allow Sinomine Resource Group to continue extracting critical minerals. An order on July 16th quashed any ensuing appeals. Eric Rader of the Wilderness Committee says while he has no issue with the new license, he does have problems with the way the appeals were dismissed on the request of Minister Mike Moyes.
The minister must know something about this file, and yet the only appeal to the issuing of the license is back to the minister who just issued it.
Rader says the province should farm out the appeals to an independent body. He also says the province should make those concerns public and respond to them in public. The Manitoba government says its strategy to address chronic homelessness is working. But some in Point Douglas are raising safety concerns about encampments in their area, saying change isn't happening fast enough. The province launched the Your Way Home strategy in January with the goal of moving people out of encampments and into housing. Bernadette Smith, minister responsible for homelessness, says 59 people have been moved into housing so far.
That's a big number for people. If you think about just one person and the amount of, support that a person needs, some of these folks have been unhoused for a very long time, living in encampments.
Smith says all 59 people are still housed today. She says the government is working to make more housing available. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather, today I'm going to get a closer look at some of the folks that are living unhoused and what works for them. I'm going to be visiting 3 different places. So I'm going to visit with a couple that on Friday is supposed to move from an encampment into something more transitional. Yeah. And because Friday's August 1st, lots of moving for lots of people everywhere. And then I'm going to visit a place where someone's moved from being I understand they lived in a bus shelter on the street for many years. Then they lived in temporary, sort of a temporary bed. They had frozen, extremities, their feet. And then they moved into transition, and now they've moved somewhere more permanent. That's out in Elmwood. I'm going to different areas. And then the third thing I'm going to do is talk to some of the property developers and landlords that run spaces that could be part of the transitional solution, because last week we kind of started a whole series of conversations about what the strategies really need to look like, maybe even in partnership or as another piece of what the province is doing, because we have such a depth of a problem here in Manitoba.
We really do. So many people with suffering and needing places to stay. That's really great. I look forward to hearing what you find.
Yeah, me as well. I look forward to meeting the folks out there today. Yeah. So thank you for the news. Heather's back with more headlines before the top. Back to the news center to watch what's developing. And of course, anytime on time that things develop between when we're on the air here, you can check the developing news online at cbc.ca/Manitoba. I just posted a picture on my Facebook page of the orange ball that is actually our sun this morning. Lots of smoke out there. Abby's here with our regional forecast.
Yes, Marcy, the sun is going to be more like an orange glow behind, those smoky skies we have across the southern and the northern part of the province. If you're on YouTube, you can just have you can catch a glimpse of what the sun looks like outside just over the city this morning. It's smoky from south to north. The air quality remains poor in a lot of regions, and also visibility will be impacted. Winnipeg right now, we're looking at 16 degrees. It is really smoky outside. When I stepped outside, it was smoky, and it's going to stick around for most of the day. We will warm up to around 24 degrees, but the humidity is going to feel hotter, warmer than that. And with that wind wind coming from the northeast. The Pembina Valley region, more than Winkler to the Morris, we're seeing 15 degrees and also smoke there. Brandon also seeing smoke and mist mixed, and then we'll be seeing a mix of sun and clouds. There's a slight chance of showers in that part of the province. We'll see temperatures get to 23. Dauphin is at 10 and smoky. That will stay with you all through the day. In Gimli, we're seeing 13 degrees, cloudy conditions. Expect these hazy skies to stay with you with the smoke staying all through the day, even into the overnight, with temperatures warming close to 24. In the northern part of the province, the Power, Flin Flon and surrounding areas, we're looking at 13 degrees at this time. The smoke will stay also for most of the day. It's going to be for all day. We'll see temperatures around 21 degrees. Thompson is also smoky at 6 degrees, a mix of sun and clouds in the forecast, and we will be seeing showers in Thompson today and maybe some thunderstorms sometime in the afternoon, high around 17. While further north in Churchill, where we don't have warnings, it's just 10 degrees, mostly cloudy and a bit windy at that part of the province. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds for Churchill this morning, highs around 16 degrees. So it's more about smoke blanketing the province today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
In traffic, it's about smoke as well. We got a call about Highway 6 with heavy smoke around Ponton. And I just want to mention, of course, Louise Bridge remains closed, as you heard on the news, and we'll have more on that story this half hour. 788-3093 if you do want to reach Sierra. Well, next on the show, let's celebrate a little bit, because this week CBC Music shared its annual list of 30 hot Canadian classical musicians under 30, and 2 Winnipeggers made the cut, including my next guest, Ari Hooker. He's a 21-year-old pianist and composer. So we're listening to a little bit of Ari playing Little Sweet in G minor. And though he may be younger, he's already making a big splash in the classical musical world. Last year, he made his solo debut with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, playing a piano concerto that he composed himself. Next year, he'll join the University of Manitoba's Symphony Orchestra as a soloist. Ari's in studio this morning to tell us more about his music. Good morning.
Good morning.
So congratulations. How'd you feel when you made this list, 30 under 30?
Yeah, it was an amazing feeling. It's such a big honor to be included in a big list like this, and to get national recognition for your accomplishments and your ambition. Yeah, it's a super big honor.
How long have you been playing the piano, and what do you love about it?
I have been playing the piano for 18 years now, since I was 3 years old. What do I love about it?
What do you feel like when you really are in a piece? Like, does everything else float away and you're there with the music, or is it physically for you?
You always have to have certain presence of mind when you're performing and you're playing an instrument. But yes, part of the joy of it is always getting lost in the music and letting it take you someplace else.
You obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but a lot of Manitobans listening might know your name a little bit beyond your own accomplishments, because you come from a family of musicians. And obviously, I shouldn't say, I keep saying obviously, but I mean, Yuri Hooker is former principal cellist with the WSO, recently retired, but that's your dad.
Yes.
And your mother's Michelle Moore, former conductor, pianist.
Mm-hmm.
What do they think of your accomplishment?
I'm sure they are very proud of how far I've come, and obviously I am also indebted to them as the key influences in just my musical journey.
Did you grow up hearing classical music all the time?
Yes,
Yeah.
like every day, pretty much. As long as I can remember.
Did you like it all the time? I wonder, because it's sometimes families, it runs in families, the love of something, but sometimes it's like, no, that's not for me actually.
Almost all the time, I loved it.
Always.
Yes, it's always been a love for me.
You had a chance to play alongside your dad actually with the WSO. What was that experience like for you?
It was super meaningful. It was it was a super special moment for me. Just because I've grown up seeing him on that stage for so long at the Centennial Concert Hall. And so getting to not just be on that stage with a professional orchestra, but to see him, just 10, 15 feet away from me was super meaningful.
Yeah, I bet. I want to listen to something else, because you're also a composer and we have another example of your work. So let's have a listen to this. What are we listening to?
So this is the fifth etude from my set of 8 concert etudes that I composed over the course of last year and premiered in April.
Mm-hmm. Your music, this sample, a little bit different from the first sample we heard of your composing, but this fluid, beautiful, lyrical, soft. How do you describe, that's how I'm describing what I'm hearing. How do you describe your work when you're composing and your signature feel?
It's tough question to answer.
Or do you like to play with different styles?
Yeah, for sure. And as a developing composer, it's hard to sort of say that you have one style because you're influenced by everything else before you. So yeah, a lot of it is just drawing on inspiration from past composers and absorbing and using that in ways that I think are new and creative.
Do you like what kind of music do you like to perform the most? Like really hammer it out on the piano and see how far it can be pushed, or the beautiful lyrical?
I do like to really hammer it out on the piano and see how far it can be pushed. I'm a big fan of the late romantic Russian virtuoso repertoire.
Love that. Tell me a little bit about what your goals are with composing and or performing.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is always just to continue to create beautiful music and inspire audiences, and to do that on as widespread of a stage as you can. And that will always be my goal as both a performer and a composer. I
know you're staying in Manitoba, at least to start. I understand you're going to be studying, continue studying at U of M next year.
Yeah.
And then are your plans to do more musical education outside of the province?
Hopefully, that is my hope. I would love to go somewhere bigger, like Toronto or something like that.
Congratulations on this. Thank you so much for coming in this morning and telling us more about your work. We're going to listen to a bit more of it. Abby's going to bring it up here. Nice to see you.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
That is Ari Hooker, pianist and composer, recently named one of 30 Canadian classical musicians under 30 by CBC Music. This is more of Little Sweet in G minor.
CBC Music, live at Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada. An absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. All right. A new season of episodes now available. Bahamas, The Glorious Sons, The Sadies, Field Guide, Serena Ryder, O.C. Elliott, and Chantal Kreviazek. CBC Music, live at Massey Hall. Watch free on CBC Gem.
It is 7:46 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. and the app and YouTube. Well, hopefully you're getting where you need to go this morning. It might be a little tougher if you use the Louise Bridge. Let's talk about that, as you heard in the news. The 115-year-old Louise Bridge in Winnipeg is going to remain closed for the rest of the summer. Now, the bridge connects the Winnipeg neighborhoods of Point Douglas and Elmwood to the southern part of the city, and it was closed in May for maintenance. It was originally scheduled to reopen at the end of the month, but this has now been pushed back to September. And remember, it's a bigger deal because Arlington is still closed. Chair of Public Works Committee, Councillor Janice Luke, spoke with Mike Arsenault from CBC about what is happening with the Louise Bridge. They talked over Zoom.
They opened up certain parts of it and were looking at it and determined that it needed more work. So that was the first delay. Then I call this a second delay, and the same thing, right? The more they examined and looked at the structural safety of it, they've decided that they need more time to do repairs. So I appreciate that that's really a major inconvenience. It's really concerning. And I guess the good news in all of this is right now we've got a detailed design study underway, $1.5 million that was approved in the budget to look at what needs to be done to rehabilitate the bridge. The plan is to have this detailed design, this work done over the next year. We approved this in the 2024 budget, the 1.5 million. So that's what they're working on now. And then the goal is to start the bridge repairs in 2028. They're estimating it to be around $40 million. And the type of rehabilitation that would occur would enable another 30-year life out of the bridge. And at that point, the amount of growth estimated for the eastern quadrant of the city will merit a renewal of the bridge and an incorporation of a transit corridor, a major transit corridor. So I know people are concerned that, oh, maybe this is another Arlington Bridge in the works where it's going to be shut down completely. I'd say no. The good thing is we've got design and funding set aside to do the rehabilitation.
I can't believe it. It's been this long because many traffic people that need to use this bridge to get to the other side, it just causes complete gridlock. And I've seen fire trucks, paramedics, even police cars have to reroute to get to emergency calls. I think this is way too long, and they haven't done anything. The bridge needs to be completely asphalted. I'm surprised they haven't even had an opportunity to give it a little bit of a sandblast and a fresh paint job like they did the Redwood Bridge. They preserved it, refurbished it. There's a lot of life left in this bridge, and it's a part of Winnipeg history. This should be restored as soon as possible and opened as soon as possible for the public safety, and for paramedics, firefighters, and the police department. I do drive around here all the time. I shop around here. I have friends that I always drive here. It's a complete inconvenience for people to reroute, and especially around 3:30 to 5:30, it's impossible. You're bumper to bumper for takes you about 40 minutes to get off of Regent to Henderson Highway. I think it's pretty sad that this has not been moving a lot faster. In my opinion, I think a refurbished and a fresh coat of paint and fresh asphalt, we could get another 20 years out of this bridge.
It's Graham Fair. Getting to work's been a lot different. I've just happened to take the buses a little bit earlier, just because it takes a little bit longer to get to work and stuff like that. Before the buses changed over, it was pretty easy getting downtown, and then with the bridge closure, it's a lot harder to get downtown now.
The city just announced that they were planning on reopening it this Friday, but they found some extra problems, and now they're going to have to leave it. They're going to have it closed at least till September. What are your thoughts when I tell you that?
I thought it was going to be done a lot sooner. And like I said, for me personally, it's not the hugest deal in the world because I don't know, I can walk where I need to get to go, and the bus system seems to be pretty good. But I know other people that I live with and stuff like that. I live in an apartment building just over there. Their bus routes and stuff like that have changed a lot, and I know them getting to downtown and going north has been a lot more difficult. So it seems that some people are going to be probably put out a lot longer than they had expected.
And what about just friends or people that you know around here that drive? What have you heard from them about the bridge closure?
I know why. My friends, driving me home is a lot more of a pain in the butt than it was before. I got a ride home last night from a friend of mine, and it takes him an extra 20 minutes now just to get back to his place after dropping me off. So it seems like people driving, it's impacting them a lot more. The buses seem to be a little bit better. But I know my family as well, they have to take a completely different route if they want to come visit me at my apartment and stuff like that. So it's a lot different for people, and seems to be a little bit longer of a drive.
What are your thoughts on the city's sort of managing these bridges? Do you think that we should just keep repairing them, or do you think maybe it's time to replace some of these?
Well, I'm honestly not 100% sure because when they first started working on the bridge, I walk by here lots and I go fishing down by the river, and I never saw anybody working on it for a long time. So I wasn't sure kind of what they were actually fixing. No one ever really said, as far as I know, what needed to be fixed, what the problems were and stuff like that. I just knew that the bridge was closed. So I mean, I guess for people driving, it'd be nice if it was fixed. I don't really know if there's alternate routes people can take to get around it that's works for them and stuff like that. So I'd like it to get fixed sooner than later. I just kind of had hoped that it would have been done a lot sooner, and like I said, I didn't really see anybody working on it for quite a while.
Louise Bridge going to be closed for the rest of the summer, and we'll see beyond that. That was CBC's Mike Arsenault speaking first to Councillor Janice Lukes about it, and then area residents Joseph Keith, who we just heard from, Graham Fair, who we just heard from, and previously Joseph Keith. They were talking near the Louise Bridge in Winnipeg yesterday.
It's an honor to have you at the White House.
The stories that matter.
The opportunity is in the partnership.
As they happen.
There are some places that are never for sale.
And what they mean to you.
But never say never. Never say never.
For news you can trust, stay with CBC News.
It is coming up to 5 to 8 right now, and let's lean in for a moment to another story that has been making news today. Friends of Peter Toth, as you've been hearing, are still waiting to learn more about the moments that led to the pilot's death. On Saturday, Toth's single-engine airplane crashed in a farmer's field near Dugald, Manitoba. That's just east of Winnipeg. Toth was a member of the Winnipeg chapter of the Experimental Aviation Association, and President James Slade says although Toth died on Saturday, he didn't learn the news until Sunday. Yesterday, while speaking with CBC's Zubina Ahmed, Slade shared the moment he realized that it was his friend who had died.
I knew that his plane was missing from the hangar. I knew he was flying that day, and I didn't know it was actually Peter's plane until sometime Sunday. He was working very hard toward his flying permit, and in Canada, of course, we have different levels of flying permit. There's a recreational permit, and then there's a private pilot's license, and Peter was working to finish his recreational permit, and then he had the intention of furthering that and going on to complete his private license later on, but that level of training was not necessary for the type of plane that he had. So he wanted to gain experience, of course, and you get experience by flying. So he completed the recreational permit, and he just got that this spring. He was so proud to see that he had completed the coursework and the flight training for it. And he continued his training. He wanted to keep learning. So he started a seaplane endorsement as well and completed that. So I met Peter through the EAA, where we are both very active members. And Peter was working on usually 2 projects at once. So one of our most active members. So I've known him for about 5 years now, and we always found him to be very meticulous when working on his plane or on our group project. He would always be the one I would ask to double check my work if he was around, and vice versa, of course. So he was always very, very conscious about getting things done right.
And what are your fond memories of Peter?
We had several conversations, and we didn't always agree on things, but everything was always he was just delightful to be around because he was extremely knowledgeable. You could ask him about virtually any topic, and he would have something to say about it, and he was informed on it as well. So he always liked to be well informed, and he's just a very happy person to be around.
That's James Slade, the president of the Winnipeg chapter of the Experimental Aviation Association, remembering his friend Peter Toth. On Saturday, Toth's single-engine airplane crashed in a farmer's field near Dugald, just east of Winnipeg, and he died. If you want to find out more about the story, you can go online to cbc.ca/Manitoba. It is now 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. Heather's here with updates on other stories in news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, after months out of their homes, people from Tatasqueat Cree Nation can start heading home. Hundreds have been out of that community since the end of May because of a wildfire nearby. Evacuees ended up in places as far away as Niagara Falls. Then in June, the community's water treatment plant stopped working. Chief Doreen Spence says repairs have been made and they will now have a staggered return. If you were hoping to use the Louise Bridge for your morning commute over the next few days, think again. The more than a century-old bridge was supposed to open up at the end of this month. It was closed back in May for maintenance, but the city says unforeseen issues have pushed that date back to September. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, coming up after 8 o'clock in Winnipeg, there is growing concern that a proposed concert from a Christian country singer could sow seeds of division in our city. He has ties to MAGA, and in other Canadian cities, he has been cancelled. People in other cities have said that he poses a security concern as well here, that this could not that he, pardon me, I need to word this correctly, not that he is the security concern, that the event happening here could actually be unsafe. But that musician saying he is just trying to empower other Christians in the face of what he calls anti-Christian bias. We're going to hear what might have sparked that point of view and that movement around quote-unquote anti-Christian bias. So that's coming up in a discussion after 8 o'clock right here on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are with CBC. It's smoky. It's 16 degrees, and an advisory for air quality is in effect for all of southern Manitoba and much through the south and up through Thompson as well. In Winnipeg today, a high of 24. It won't feel sunny because it's just going to feel smoky. And the humidex is going to be around 26. So not too sticky today, but it's going to be warm. Right now in the city, it is, as mentioned, 16 degrees. Brandon is 12, and Thompson is smoky and 5 degrees. World Report's next. Stay with us on 89.3 FM.
Today on Q.
I'm Garby Bailey, sitting in for Tom Power. The award-winning Canadian novelist Heather O'Neill and her daughter, the artist Arizona O'Neill, will be here to talk about collaborating on Heather's new book, Valentine in Montreal.
I was inspired a lot by children's books from the Victorian era.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Pia Chattopadhyay. Shark Week on television has become a summer tradition, but some experts say the on-screen portrayals have left us with a warped view of the sharp-toothed animals. A defense of sharks coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. New York City police are investigating why a gunman targeted an office tower in Manhattan yesterday. The shooter killed 4 people and injured another, then he took his own life. Mayor Eric Adams told CBS News the gunman left a note that said he believed he had brain injury and he thought football was to blame. Freelance reporter Steve Futterman has more on what we know so far.
It happened in the early evening in Midtown Manhattan. A man openly carrying an AR-15 style assault rifle calmly walked into a Park Avenue skyscraper and opened fire.
Pure evil came to the heart of our city.
Patrick Hendry is the head of New York's Police Benevolent Association. When it was over, around a half hour later, there were multiple deaths, including a police officer who worked as a security guard in the building and the shooter who killed himself.
I realized, oh my God, this is a shootout.
This woman was outside the building. She saw a wounded man race out with blood coming out of his body.
He said, help, help, I've been shot.
The suspect has been identified as 27-year-old Shane Tamura. He grew up here in Los Angeles, was a highly regarded high school football player. In recent years, he has been living in Las Vegas. New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch.
Mr. Tamura has a documented mental health history, and we are working to understand why he targeted this particular location.
Among the companies located in the building are the National Football League and the accounting firm KPMG. And this wasn't the only deadly shooting that took place in the U.S. yesterday. In Reno, Nevada, a man shot and killed 3 people outside of Reno's largest casino. The shooter was wounded and taken into custody. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
Famine is now unfolding in Gaza. That is the central finding of a new report from the UN-backed Global Hunger Monitor. But the Integrated Food Security Phase classification is not calling the situation a famine. One of the criteria for a formal declaration is at least 20% of households in an area must face an extreme lack of food. Aid groups say fighting and blockades mean they're unable to collect the data needed. Ross Smith is with the World Food Program. He says his agency is also unable to move the needed amount of aid into Gaza.
The metric of success here is not the number of trucks. The metric of success is, are we able to alleviate the situation on the ground? Are we able to turn the dial on the state of severe acute malnutrition? Are we able to provide the food basket and to meet the needs of vulnerable households there?
The IPC says a third of people in Gaza are going days without food. In response to the report, Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar, says the situation is tough, but there are lies about starvation. One of Canada's longest-running civil rights protests could be coming to an end. Ed Carvery has been occupying the land of what was once Africville for more than 50 years. The Black community in Halifax was bulldozed in the 1960s. Carvery has been fighting for reparations, but as Nicolas Seguin reports, he has received an eviction notice to remove his protest trailer.
Justice wasn't served then, and I'm here trying to find justice.
Eddie Carvery sits in front of his RV, vowing to stay, even in the face of the latest eviction order to vacate the land he was born on and has been occupying for more than 50 years. Now 79, Carvery has spent most of his life seeking reparations for the people of Africville, a former Black community demolished by Halifax in the 1960s in the name of urban renewal.
Services end 100 yards from Africville. No garbage pickup, no running water, no...
Africville was home to around 400 residents starting in the early 1800s. Many were former slaves who came to Canada looking for a new life, but faced many challenges, from no running water or paved roads to an infectious disease hospital and a dump being built next door. Carvery keeps this history front of mind.
I'm tired, but until they find someone else to champion our cause, to fight for Africville, I've got no choice.
The Africville land is now home to a park and a museum in its honor. Carvery has been evicted by the municipality before, but always comes back. This time, the Africville Heritage Trust Society signed the notice, citing safety precautions, and the municipality issued him a ticket for trespassing.
He's been on the front lines, ridiculed, dragged through the mud.
That's Carvery's grandson, Eddie Carvery III. He and dozens of others showed up Monday to protest the eviction. The Africville Heritage Trust Society and Halifax Mayor Andy Fillmore declined to be interviewed. A spokesperson says Carvery's ticket was canceled Monday, and Carvery says he plans to keep fighting. Nicolas Seguin, CBC News, Halifax.
Ukrainian officials say at least 16 people have been killed in an attack on a prison. Russia bombed the facility in southeastern Zaporizhia late yesterday. Dozens of inmates are in hospital with serious injuries. The attack damaged the building, dining hall, and administrative buildings, but the prison's fence is still in place. Russia's national airline is canceling dozens more flights today as it deals with the aftermath of a cyber attack. Aeroflot revealed yesterday its IT systems have been breached, and hacker groups say they've accessed sensitive airline data. Dominic Velitis has the latest.
The destructive cyber attack brought chaos to Russian airports with dozens of flights cancelled. Russian prosecutors have now opened a criminal investigation, while lawmakers described the attack against the country's national carrier Aeroflot as a wake-up call. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, meanwhile, called the event alarming. The threat of hacking is a threat that remains for all large companies that provide services to the public, he says. We will, of course, seek to clarify this information and wait for the relevant explanations. The hacking group called Silent Crow says it carried out the attack with Belarusian cyber partisans, a self-styled hacktivist group that opposes President Alexander Lukashenko and says it wants to liberate Belarus from dictatorship. In separate statements, both groups say they launched the operation in support of Ukraine and its fight against Russia. The cyber attack is one of the most disruptive Russia has faced since launching its invasion of Ukraine in 2022, as well as severely impacting travel plans for thousands of Russians during peak holiday season. It's hit Aeroflot's share price and exposed serious vulnerabilities in the country's critical infrastructure. Dominic Velitis for CBC News, Riga, Latvia.
Heavy rain is causing devastation throughout Beijing. The rain started falling last Wednesday. Since then, the Chinese capital has received almost as much rain as it usually gets in a year. By midnight last night, more than 540 millimeters of rain had fallen on Beijing. All that water has washed away cars, caused flooding and landslides, and knocked out power. At least 38 people have died in the affected areas, and there are more rescues happening right now. Bear interactions are part of life in Southeast BC. One community was reminded of that after a grizzly attack sent a man to hospital. The man was e-biking with his wife on a popular trail when they saw two bears. As Georgie Smythe tells us, his partner acted fast to save him.
They came around kind of a blind corner, and they were right on those bears. The attack happened very quickly.
Creston Mayor Arnold de Boon says the couple, who have not been named, are locals in the small Kootenays town, where a network of riverside trails draw hikers, bikers, and a few days ago, aggressive grizzlies.
She saw a bear run past her, and then she heard her husband yelling, so she used bear spray on, I think, first the bear that ran by her, and then secondly, to just help stop the attack. The attack then broke off.
The man was taken to hospital where he underwent surgery for significant but not life-threatening injuries. Residents say that part of the Kootenays has seen the grizzly population grow after conservation efforts. Education, like how to use bear spray, is key, says Dee Howard, who works for the town, to develop ways to keep bears and humans safe and separated.
When we go for a cycle or go for a walk, what should we be looking out for and how do we prepare?
This attack brings that home for those that live there.
Sometimes I don't make sure that I have my bear spray, but I will be now.
Yeah, always be aware. You have to be aware. We live in a forest, and there are lots of bears around.
Conservation officers say it's likely the couple startled the grizzlies and that the attack was defensive, so the bears will be left alone. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg under a very smoky sky this morning in southern Manitoba and extending north as well. Almost looks like fog downtown. We'll get into the forecast and we'll talk more about what the day is going to bring in a moment here. Also, this half hour, we have another conversation in our series of ongoing conversations about a concert that is proposed to be happening here in August with American country Christian singer Sean Foyt, who is set to perform in Winnipeg's Central Park, which is a public space. There's growing concern that an impending concert from this artist, who has ties to MAGA, could sow seeds of division in the city. The musician says he's just trying to empower other Christians in the face of what he calls anti-Christian bias. We're going to look specifically at that this morning. We're going to hear what might have sparked the movement and the idea and thinking around anti-Christian bias. So that's a conversation this half hour. Stay tuned for it. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who's in our news center, who has our headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a man who is banished from Nisitchewayasik Cree Nation is challenging that decision in court. 53-year-old Terry Francois calls being banished from his community for 5 years incredibly extreme punishment. People forced out of Tatasqueyak Cree Nation are starting to head home. On social media last night, Chief Doreen Spence announcing they are beginning a staggered return to the community. Hundreds were forced out by wildfires at the end of May. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Abby, what's up in the weather?
The air quality is poor from the northern part of the province and much of southern Manitoba into central Manitoba this morning. So it's best to limit your outdoor times if you feel sick. In the south, the humidity is even adding to that hazy conditions we're feeling outside there, which is going to make it really feel harder throughout the day. Winnipeg right now, 17. Now we moved up one. Smoky skies. We do have the haze will be sticking around for most of the day. We warm up to around 24 degrees. The winds are coming light from the west and the north. So it's like, the wind just changing directions. And tonight we'll see some clear conditions. However, the smoke is still going to be staying with us. And then tomorrow we'll see some sunny skies and the smoke will return into the afternoon. Across the south, similar conditions. Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, temperatures in the mid-teens already. Hazy skies and warming up to 24. While up north, we're seeing temperatures between 8 and 13 degrees right now. We'll see Thompson, seeing the cool parts of the province. But right now, Winnipeg, 17 degrees and smoky outside.
All right. How's it affecting the commute, Sierra? What else are we hearing?
I'm not hearing too much. We did get a call from Marcel about an hour ago. He was driving on Highway 6 up north, kind of near Ponton in Manitoba, which is up north, in case you didn't know, just like I didn't know until I did a quick little Google on the computer. And he said it was super smoky, and he said it was blocking the sun, and he could just smell it in the air. So it sounds like it is smoky up north, also smoky down here in the south, which might be getting in the way of your drive. Other than that, not too much developing here in the city, or it didn't sound like anything major happening on the highways. We still have a little bit of time left in the show, though. So if there's something that comes up for you, let me know and give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, we return now to a series of conversations about a story we began talking about yesterday. In August, American country Christian singer Sean Foyt is set to perform in Winnipeg Central Park. But news of the impending show has come with criticism. Foyt, who openly supports the MAGA movement, is known to speak against the 2S LGBTQ+ community and abortion rights. Now, although critics accuse him of spreading hate speech, he says his Let Us Worship tour is all about stopping the hate faced by Christians. Have a listen.
For generations, people have been freely worshiping God, but that freedom right now is under attack in the nation of Canada. The news has gone viral. Over the last several days, we've had 6 separate venues across the provinces of this nation cancel our free outdoor worship events. We need to take a stand in this nation.
As I mentioned, in Winnipeg, a decision has not yet been made about this concert happening in the public park. But in other provinces, what Foyt said there is correct, that the concerts were canceled or in one case moved to a private venue. Now, in a statement to CBC, Foyt declined an interview, but he did say, quote, "To publicly profess deeply held Christian beliefs is to be labeled an extremist and to have free worship events classified as public safety risks," end quote. He went on to say, quote, "We will not cower in the face of religious persecution, whether in America, Canada, or anywhere else," end quote. Foyt is not the first to speak out about the persecution of Christians in Canada. Carmen Celestini is here to talk about this aspect of the story. Carmen is a professor at the University of Waterloo. She specializes in religion, culture, and conspiracy, and she joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So when you hear the narrative that Canadian Christians are being persecuted and what Sean Foyt has said and others, how do you hear that?
Well, I think when we think about these ideas, it's a way to get sympathy from other groups, because if you are a victim and you're being oppressed and you're expressing that, people become concerned. But what we need to think about is that it is not the religion or Christianity that is being questioned here or why the events are being canceled. It's specifically because of the language and the ideas that are being expressed in this. Now, those are not inherently always Christian ideas, but it can harm. And Canada's rules about free expression and our human rights and how we engage with that is different than it is in America in 2025. But we need to understand, to remove ourselves from this idea that it's specifically about Christians, but it is about the message that is being articulated by this group and by this individual.
There will be maybe some Christians listening, or maybe even Catholics, people who follow other religions, who believe that marriage, just to look at one example, should be between a man and a woman. They may also feel they have to hide that in 2025, and they may describe that as being persecuted. I wonder what your response is to that.
Well, I think when we think about religion, and we have freedom of religion to practice as we want, but the rule is not that you can put your belief system upon another group. Now, to hide that or not to believe in something, that is something about articulation and how Canada wants to engage in these conversations. Our inclusivity or exclusivity in some cases is really something that is a national conversation that is within the public sphere, where religion absolutely has to play a role in those conversations, because it affects our values when we vote. It affects how we interpret the world and how we engage with society. But we have to engage in understanding other perspectives and individuals and how they choose to live their lives.
Some may look at that example, though, and see just, that example as hateful, that belief as is hateful. How much can a religious person, I wonder, be at risk of being co-opted by a larger, more extreme agenda? I'm just kind of trying to look at this in a bit of a deeper way.
Well, that is a very interesting question. When we think about these ideas, especially after COVID, we have a lot of people who are sort of connecting their religious beliefs with conspiratorial beliefs and engaging in moral panics. So the so-called grimmer moral panic and what's happening to society. In these cases, there is this nebulous group who, in this case, is progressives or liberals who are trying to take away power positions, who are trying to take away traditions in Canada as they understand them. And so it can be this mix where you start thinking about, well, my religious faith says X, and I see this group or this other or someone telling me how to interpret this in a battle of good versus evil or saving society. In many cases, people articulate it as saving God, country, and family, right? These are the traditions that they understand society to have. And so when you throw in conspiracy theories or you throw in moral panics, what we can see is populist governments rising up, responding to that. So if there is this perceived threat, either real or not, government or populist leaders can say, well, I will put these policies into play to relieve this problem or to relieve this oppression or fear that you have in society. Groups like conspiracy theorists and extremists can really play on emotions. And by using those emotions and creating this perpetual sense of disaster, that fear is constantly just around the corner, something else bad is going to happen. But we can solve that problem by taking down the group that we believe that it is, or by limiting the progressives or limiting liberals if those are the enemy within society. So there is a great crossover between the two. We can say that religion and the ideals and values and interpretations of that can also be articulated through politics and through conspiracy theories. And we really see this interlocking happening. It's like a conspiracy convergence that is happening with these belief systems politically.
Just to go back to the original discussion about Christian persecution and the sort of the idea of this and the history of this, what is the actual history of Christian persecution in Canada?
Well, in Canada, I mean, obviously, when people first came to the New World in North America, they were leaving religious persecution. That's why in the United States, we have the separation of church and state as part of the laws, why we have religious freedom in Canada. But this persecution narrative is very powerful. If we think about religious language, if I say to you the word freedom or liberty, within that, each one of us will have a different interpretation of that word, but we know it's something that we have to fight for. And if you feel strongly about your faith, then you will fight for that, right? So this idea of persecution has played a role whenever there are significant changes in society. So like the Industrial Revolution, the Fourth Revolution with computers and the internet, these ideas it's an attack on tradition, an attack on their understanding of the world. So it is often articulated as persecution. During the COVID mandates, there were ministers across Canada, in Calgary and in Ontario,
and in Manitoba,
who felt very strongly about this idea that they were being persecuted, that they couldn't meet in their churches and have their sermons and be a congregation together. What they didn't take into consideration were that other religious groups were not able to meet in their temples or mosques or religious buildings. And so they were saying, well, we're being persecuted, well, other people get to do this. And so it created this movement to the point that one specific minister in Calgary actually was on Alex Jones saying that Canada was persecuting Christians, that we were under tyranny, and that we needed to be saved by America. And so this narrative really pushed not what was happening with COVID and the fears that were attached to that, but putting it into something that was very emotional about religious faith and practice.
Why do you think the sentiment is spreading in Christian communities across the country?
I think that there is a convalescence of things that are happening here. What we're seeing is a lot of conspiracy theories are becoming mainstream. They're part of a conversation online. During COVID, that was strengthened because most of us were engaging only online and they were available 24 hours a day. We have people who are in positions of power, who are influencers, but also politicians who are using coded language that have something to do with conspiracy theories and bringing in religion to this. And that this narrative of persecution, especially to the South of the United States, with new laws about how they deal with Christian attacks or understanding of Christianity, really is motivating people. And that can be problematic here. Often we imagine that this problem is simply something that is happening in the United States. Ideas of Christian nationalism or this movement is really American. But the truth is that we have it here as well. We have groups who are calling for parallel Christian societies, or to have our government provide laws that are for the people, but with God in the middle, and God and biblical laws being what is representative of our nation. And it really works with these conspiracy theories and these moral panics because it puts them in a place of validation and gives them an enemy or something evil to fight against.
If part of this is a lack of trust in governments or in institutions and that sentiment, how do we rebuild trust?
That's really hard. For these conspiracy theories and ideas of Christian nationalism to take hold, you have to distrust the media. So CBC is an example, right? They're not going to listen into CBC and take what the journalists there are saying as the truth, but they will turn to their own influencers. The problem is that often we dismiss these groups and say, oh, there's, a very small movement, it's not going to have an impact. But we find that in the future, they absolutely have an impact on some of the ideas that we're having. We need to engage in conversations of transparency. What are the ideas that they perceive as being the injustice towards them? And how do we engage in a conversation about that to say it's incorrect, or how we can address it? The problem is that this is a multifold situation. If in Canada we say online, we're going to limit disinformation or limit social media platforms that are spreading this information, you can use a VPN to go somewhere else. We also have to consider our laws about freedom of expression and what people can say and how they engage with it. And, what are the ramifications for that? We also need to look at people who are involved in extremism, conspiracy theories, research as scholars, and how we articulate those emotions, deal with it, and, this sense of victimhood that many of them have constructed for themselves labels other groups as oppressors. And so we also have to hold our politicians who are articulating this oppression and relieving of that. So it is multifold and not something that is really easy to solve, but it is something that we need to start engaging with as a conversation, as a nation and globally, because it is something that can be, you go on a VPN to another place, and if they don't have the same rules as us, then you can still access that material and those ideas and that fear.
An important conversation, and throughout it, people can hear me trying to be as inclusive as I can of all those multi-perspectives, and really appreciate your experience walking us through this, as it's your area of study. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is University of Waterloo Religious Studies professor Carmen Celestini. Sean Foyt, by the way, is still slated to play Central Park next month. That event is part of a Canada-U.S. tour he's described as the country's hour of awakening and the opportunity to worship Jesus in his description. The city of Winnipeg has said they received an incomplete permit application to play in the public space, but has not yet said whether they will approve a completed permit.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free. If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
It is 8:27 a.m. It's 17 degrees and smoky in Winnipeg. And business news this morning, I was looking at the high temperatures and how it drives up high food prices. And they were looking at the example of price spikes as high as 50% for olive oil in Europe and rice in Japan. So lots of impacts of not just heat, but of course, this is all because of drought and things can't be grown. And Marjorie Dalhouse is in to talk a bit more about that from a Manitoba perspective, the host of Radio Noon. Hi.
Hi, Marcy. Yeah, so that's what we're asking you today is what kind of concerns do you have about climate change? We're talking about drought because we've had states of agricultural disaster and states of emergency declared here in Manitoba. We heard from some cattle farmers who are just like, it's going to be hard to find feed, water and everything. And it's not just livestock, it's also crops too. So we're asking you, if you're a producer, we want to hear your story. Has drought affected you? Maybe you've been affected in the past. How did you deal with it? Maybe you're someone who has some climate change concerns and you want to talk to us about what your concerns are. The president of CAP, Jill Verwey, will join us, as well as we're going to get some stats about drought and dryness from CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk. So again, call after 12:30 with your questions and your comments.
It's so extreme here
It is.
In this province. I mean, now we're dealing with the wildfires like we haven't before. In this intense way. And then we all know flooding, we all know winter, we all know blizzards. But drought is something that obviously we've always contended with, but this year it's also really bad. There's just so little rain.
Yeah, so little rain, especially when you look at the central and northern parts of the province, as Riley will mention. We've had a little bit more rain here in the south, which is why, we've heard about berries cropping up early and stuff like that. But the central and the northern parts of Manitoba, very dry.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, March.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Marjorie Dalhouse, the host of Radio Noon. So it's all about drought this afternoon on the call-in portion at 6, between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, rather. Between 12:30 and 1 is the call-in on Radio Noon. So check it out and make a date with them over your lunch hour. Thanks for being with us this morning over your breakfast hour on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube on CBC. My name is Marcy Marcusa, but I want to take a moment to mention some other names. These are the associate producers who contributed to today's show. So thank you, Issa Kickson and Marshall Hodgins, as well as Chidi Akuma. Our current affairs reporter in unit, Jim Agapito. Big thanks to our producer, Donna Carrero, who worked on one of our items this morning as well. In our news department, Heather Wells and Joni Nicolo and Megan Ketchison. We'll hear from Heather again in just a moment. Our live team, Brad Lilly's back behind the YouTube controls, Sierra Sanders directing and covering the commute, and Abby Adiyemi, our senior technician and also on air with your weather. Thank you, guys. And big thanks to our producers in unit, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. A smoky Tuesday morning at 8:30. It's 17 degrees. That smoke's going to hang over the city throughout the day. A high today of 24. A man who is banished from a northern Manitoba First Nation is fighting that decision in federal court. Terry Francois has been cast out of Nisitchewayasik Cree Nation until the end of 2029. His lawyer filed a federal application for judicial review on Thursday. It says Francois was charged with resisting a peace officer after driving away from a check stop set up by the community on New Year's Eve. The 53-year-old wasn't allowed to stay in the community with pending charges, so he has been living in Thompson. He later pleaded guilty and was fined. When Francois returned to Nisitchewayasik in June for his daughter's graduation, he received a letter from the First Nation banishing him for 5 years.
It made me feel like the alien, I'm like no longer allowed anywhere near anybody from my reserve. And I grew up there as a kid. As a little baby, I grew up there.
He calls the punishment incredibly extreme. The allegations have not been tested in court. CBC News has reached out to Nisitchewayasik Cree Nation for comment. Peter Toth, the pilot who died in a single-engine plane crash near Dugald, is being fondly remembered by his friends in aviation. RCMP say Toth was the only person inside his Quad City Challenger 2 when it went down Saturday morning. James Slade, president of Experimental Aircraft Association Winnipeg chapter, had been friends with Toth for more than 5 years. Slade calls him one of the most active members of the group.
He was just delightful to be around because he was extremely knowledgeable. You could ask him about virtually any topic and he would have something to say about it, and he was informed on it as well. And Yeah, he's just a very happy person to be around.
Slade was flying his flying his Challenger was one of Toth's dreams. People forced to flee to Tassway at Cree Nation are starting to head home. On social media last night, Chief Doreen Spence announced they will begin a staggered return to the community. Hundreds were forced out by wildfires at the end of May, and then in June, the community's water treatment plant stopped working. People have been staying in Brandon, Winnipeg, and as far away as Niagara Falls. Spence says flights are being arranged starting today to take people back to Thompson. In a Facebook Live post, she says not everyone should go home at once.
Like, we're giving you guys that option of sending somebody home first to check out your house, to clean it, and just keep your family in Thompson until your house is looked at or assessed, because it might not be in good condition when you get home.
Spence says there have been several power outages and food may have to be thrown out. The Manitoba government says its strategy to address chronic homelessness is working, but some in Point Douglas are raising safety concerns about encampments in their area, saying change isn't happening fast enough. The province launched the Your Way Home strategy back in January. The goal was to move people out of encampments and into safe housing. Bernadette Smith, minister responsible for homelessness, says 59 people have been moved into housing so far.
That's a big number. If you think about just one person and the amount of, support that a person needs, some of these folks have been unhoused for a very long time, living in encampments.
Smith says all 59 people are still housed today. She says the government is working to make more housing available. Wab Kinu's NDP cabinet used an order to quash appeals against the approval of a mining license. In 2024, the province approved an environmental license to allow Sinomine Resource Group to continue extracting critical minerals at the Tanco mine near Nopaming Provincial Park. 4 people appealed the decision. Earlier this month, the Kinu cabinet dismissed the appeals upon the request of Minister Mike Moyes. Eric Rader of the Wilderness Committee says while he has no issue with the new license, he does have problems with the way the appeals were dismissed.
The only recourse to appeal an Environment Act license is to the same minister whose department issued the license.
Rader says the province should farm out the appeals to an independent body. He also says the province should make the concerns public and respond to them in public. A more than century-old Winnipeg bridge is going to stay closed most of the summer. The Louise Bridge was closed in May for maintenance. It was supposed to reopen at the end of this week, but the city says unforeseen issues have pushed the reopening to September. Joseph Keith drives through the area often and says the closure is causing major traffic delays.
It's a complete inconvenience for people to reroute, especially around 3:30 to 5:30. It's impossible. You're bumper to bumper for takes you about 40 minutes to get off of Regent to Henderson Highway.
The city says replacing the bridge isn't feasible right now, with larger, more urgent projects like the North End Sewage Treatment Plant taking priority. You can find more news throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
All right, last look at your morning commute with Sierra Sanders.
It's been a slow day today on the commuter line, but that means that things are moving smoothly out there on your commute. Nothing to report here in the last minute of the show, but we'll do it all over again tomorrow morning.
We will. All right, Abby, what do you got?
We got smoke and temperatures right now. Most of the regions marking around 17 degrees. We'll see highs close to 24, but this smoke is going to continue into the day. We might see showers in Thompson later today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining our team here this morning, everyone, and making us part of your Tuesday. I'm Marcy Marcusa. The Current's next on CBC. We hope you stay with us right here on 89.3 FM. Take care. Have a good rest of your day.